Little creation and all mankind, make a joyful noise to you. Let all the stones on the ground shout your name. Make a joyful noise to you. Let all the trees of the fields clap their hands. Let all the oceans roar. Let all the trumpets and shofars sound. Let all the great high mountains tell them, all honor, all praise. You are worthy in all of your ways, Yahweh. All power, all love, Almighty of heaven above, Yahweh. By your blood, by your stripes, by Yahushua who delivers all our lives. You are greatly to be praised. As far as the north to the south, the east to the west, you are greatly to be praised. No treasure upon this earth can compare to your worth. You are greatly to be praised. You walk on the wings of heaven. The earth is your footstool. You are greatly to be praised. You are greatly to be praised. All honor, all praise. You are worthy in all of your ways, Yahweh. All power, all love, Almighty of heaven above, Yahweh. By your blood, by your stripes, by Yahushua who delivers all our lives. You are greatly to be praised, greatly to be praised. All honor, all praise. You are worthy in all of your ways, Yahweh. All power, all love, Almighty of heaven above, Yahweh. By your blood, by your stripes, by Yahushua who delivers all our lives. You are greatly to be praised, greatly to be praised.
Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Ooh-ah. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Glad everybody made it. Glad you're all here. Wow. What a crazy week this has been. Woo. All right. Seems like I've been gone for months. But here we are, assembled again in obedience to the Besorah of Yahusha. And if we can make it through this without me losing power, we'll be good. We'll be Baruched. All right. So this evening, as the thunders and lightnings out there, we'll be talking about the physical, or the literal, if you will, of life, and the spiritual, the reality or the truth, if you will. So we'll be discussing understandings of these two dimensions or realms, and why we learn together how to walk and how to get the proper understanding of how to walk in the Ruach, in the truth, and worship and praise our Creator. Remember, there's no religion required to worship Yahuwah. Only love is required. Okay, so very interesting study here that Yahusha has brought us into this evening. And I think by the end of it, we should all be saturated in the Ruach. So that was a really nice song there, wasn't it? We started out with a very pretty song. And worshiping Yahuwah with song and instruments. What a wonderful way to give homage to our Creator. So I'm kind of dragging feet here this evening, waiting for others to trickle in. So in the meantime, I think we'll go into some facts about the Hebrew and build our way up into Yahuwah's word of truth. So, yeah, wow. Okay. So, there's a bridge. Well, I guess I should introduce myself. Say hi to a few people here, and then I'm going to kind of get started slowly into this. So thank you for coming, everybody. Glad you're here, Sandra. Glad you're here, Lou. Glad you're here, Phyllis. Glad you're here, Kinsley. Glad you're here, Charlotte. Tell your mom I said hi. Glad you're here, Peggy. Glad you're here, Yami. Glad you're here, Raul. Glad you're here, Tad. And tell mom I said hi. Lattering, glad you're here. Okay, so there's a bridge from impurity to purity. And we need to be able to cross that bridge. There's a way of looking at this is that we started off pure in purity, pure of heart, clean, if you will, good, light, life, and then we fell into impurity. and then we became impure. We became dark. We became death, darkness. We became had a wicked heart. Our pure heart turned to wicked heart, and we became impure or unclean, if you will. So now we have to come out of the mirror in the mud and the stench and climb out of that pit, come out of the dark pit of impurity and climb out of it and come and get clean again. We have to find the bridge. We have to get cleaned up. We have to become pure. We have to be a pure heart. We have to become good. We have to become clean again. And then so we can cross that bridge and remove ourselves from impurity over into purity again, or leave this world, this carbon copied world, and go into the spiritual realm where purity is, and become pure and clean and sinless, light and life, so forth and so on as we were. And we don't have to wait till we die to do this. This is available and reachable right now. We only need to understand. We need to have our eyes and ears opened up to this harsh reality that we're in a miry pit, and filthy, unclean, impure, and we need to come out of it. We need to get our way up out of it, find the bridge and cross over into purity, become pure again, pure-minded, pure-hearted, clean. So Scripture teaches us, the Tanakh, the Torah teaches us how to do this. It first shows us that we're in a different dimension or realm or existence than we previously were at creation. And we need to come to this realization and then come out of it, out of the impurity into the purity, by learning what's been given to us by Yahuwah in the Torah. The Torah shows us all this and shows us the way out, shows us the bridge, the path, the straight path, and how to get back into being pure. And that's what it's all about. And he gives us this knowledge by reading, of course, but through a visual. So if we can stop long enough in our busy world we're in, with our busy lives, and spend some time with Yahuwah, which we should all be able to, because that's why Yom Shabbat exists, so that we can see the visual. And so what we need to do is take the physical or the literal vision given to us in the Tanakh or the Torah, and convert that over into a spiritual understanding. Take the type, the foreshadow, convert it into a spiritual insight or understanding by walking in this vision in a spiritual walk in the spirit and truth. So we're in the Scriptures is truth. So if we're in a vision, if we put ourselves in that vision to where we see the lesson through others' mistakes and their journeys in this world, then we can surely be able to see the spiritual way out, although they did not. The children did, but the adults did not, other than a few. So anyway, we take this and we use it to our benefit in order to learn how to come out of the physical or literal world that we're trapped in and enter into the spiritual dimension or realm where truth and love resides, or where Yahuwah is. And then he teaches us everything at there. When you make it there, he'll teach you everything that you need to know. If we don't, we waller in the muddy mirror and into the pit. And at times, people will try to climb out on their own, and they'll dig in hook and claw, inching their way up out of this pit to try to get out and free themselves. And then somebody in that pit will reach up and grab them by the ankle and pull them back down in there. So now you're staying with us. Misery loves company, right? So kind of like what the adversary here he does, the devil, right? He wants to keep you in the pit, literally, in the literal pit. He wants to keep you in the grave. Don't want to let you go. He wants you to stay dead. He knows if you're dead, there's hurt in you. He's hurting you. Because Yahuwah loves everybody. So this is an important task. It's important knowledge for all of us to receive. Because without it, guess what? You remain in the pit. You remain in the world. You're spinning your wheels in the mud. You can't get out. And that's not a place you want to be caught in. Nobody wants to be caught in that. So we got to learn to get out. And the way we learn is by reading Torah. And we very carefully listen and watch and get the visual of what happened to the children of Yisrael when they tried to come out of the world, and what their mistakes were, what the good things they did were, and eventually how did they find their way into the promised land, things like that. So that's our learning tool. That's the vision we need to be able to grasp and understand. And once we get that, and we can see the reality side of the darkness or the fleshly world, the physical, we can see the light, we can see the spiritual side, and we can understand how to separate ourselves and become set apart to Yahuwah and walk in the spirit and the truth. And it's a spiritual adventure. It's difficult for many to grasp. Some never do. Some get it right away. It's like they're born with it, the ability to be Hebrew. Some work their way through it and eventually cross over, and some never do. So I'm hoping that this lesson this evening, as we study this together, will help some of us cross over. Isaiah Diaz, glad you're here, brother. Bouncer, glad you're here. Kate, glad you're here. Okay, and so let's go ahead and get started here now. And that's kind of what this evening is going to be all about. Okay, and so we can learn to discern between good and evil. We can learn to discern between the ruach of truth and the ruach of delusion. And so there is a ruach of this world. There's a ruach in man, and we'll get to this. And there's a ruach of Yahuwah, and then there's a ruach of this world. Okay, and so we need to discern those three type ruachs. Learn to discern those. Those will help move us along the straight path that we need to be walking on. And yes, there is a ruach in this world. You better believe there is. And of course, if you're of this world and you're in this world and you are this world and you love this world, then you're being influenced by the ruach of this world. No doubt about it. So I guess if we start back in the day, in the ceremonial, where there were ceremonial rituals and were going on, the old priesthood and whatnot. The Yehudi thought that the way to come out, clean up, come from impurity to purity was through the temple rituals, the old priesthood instructions. Okay, and there was a ceremony, I guess, religious type ceremony that they did that was for purifying. And what they would do is they would, in order to purify the temple, the vessels, and the priest, they would choose a red heifer, which is a young female cow that had not yet had a calf, and it would not have any blemishes or defect, and would be defect free. Not even one hair could be miscolored, and it could not have ever worn a yoke. So they would slaughter this red heifer, and then they would take and sprinkle its blood 7 times toward the tabernacle, and then its body would be burned outside the camp, and its ashes used to create the waters of purification. So they were this, of course, we should all immediately be able to identify this as a type of Yahusha. And so this would be the water purification of this time period, which just is a foreshadowing of the reality, and that's the blood of the Lamb of Yahuwah. We should all see that. At least most of us are probably seeing that. So this water purification would also be attached to Miriam as well. Moshe, and then Aaron, his brother, being the food, and then Miriam being the living water, representing the Ruach, and of course, Moshe being the type of Yahusha. Okay, so Aaron being the manna from heaven, if you will, the food, the living food. Okay, so anyway, that's a little bit. I jumped ahead a little bit, but I'll catch up to that here in a little while. But these basically, this water. Okay, a purification, which is really represents the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, and the people who had been contaminated or made unclean by death. Water symbolizes life and death. And so contaminated by death through contact with a corpse or bones or a grave, walking through a graveyard or something, okay, they would have to do this water purification and clean up enough in order for them that they could enter into the tabernacle in order to draw near to Yahuwah, the living Yahuwah. Otherwise, they weren't allowed nowhere near it. Okay, so in Hebrew, this the concept of clean and unclean, if you will, or pure and impure, purity and impurity, are akin to an outsider and an insider, if you will. Okay, so only those who are clean or pure could enter the dwelling place of Yahuwah's presence. This is all foreshadowing. It's a type. All right, it's leading up to the spiritual or the reality, which is spiritual and truth. Okay. Why is all that happening? Because it was a training process. That's why. He had the Tanakh, the Torah trains us to leave the impurities, and so we can become pure and clean again, so that we can come into the presence of Yahuwah. And so there was the need of a literal physical type or foreshadowing was needed, because the carbon copy mind needs that. Human mind needs that in order to understand it. It just can't jump right there and understand spiritual. It's almost impossible. So that's why this real life shadow or play, whatever you want to call it, was given for us to see it with our eyes and hear it with our ears so we can understand it. I mean, you had to understand the literal happenings before you could understand the spiritual. And that still stands true now. So anyway, this is an amazing way that Yahuwah trained the children of Israel, his chosen people, and how to leave impurity, leave the world, and come where they needed to be, where he wanted them to be, and that was in the spiritual world dimension, worshiping him in spirit and truth, not in mud and filth and uncleanness and impurities. He didn't want that. He couldn't have that. So he had to teach them how to come out of that and be who they were made to be. And so they could get close to him, come in his presence and worship and praise him and have a relationship with him after they were cleaned and they were pure again. So those who were deemed to be unclean or defiled, they would even make them stay outside the camp. Okay, if not purified within a period of time, they'd be cut off from Israel, and they would not even be allowed to come around anymore. And so they would be an example. That would be somebody who had leprosy, and they couldn't get rid of it. They would eventually be cut off and looked upon as unclean. You see, and then so this is the literal, and then so if you look at, well, what's the spiritual side of that? What can I see through that and see what's going on in the spiritual realm? What would be happening? Well, it's those people would remain in their sins. They would not repent, and then they would even follow the ways of darkness, and become children of darkness and never repent. And so they would be cut off. Someone had asked me what happens to people who refuse to repent and listen to Yahuwah. And the answer is in Scripture, it's very simple, really, is they wait until the second resurrection comes around. And that's 1,000 years after the first resurrection. And so then the second resurrection, they're resurrected and they stand in front of the judge, the white throne, the judgment seat. And then Yahuwah decides, according to their words, words, and their works, works, they'll be judged righteous or wrong, right or wrong. They'll be judged as sheep or goats. Okay, and then according to how he sees it, they'll either be let into the reign of Yahuwah, or they'll be thrown into the lake of fire, where the beast and the false prophet are. And it was made for Satan. Okay, and so anyway, that's what will happen to them, and it's not our business or our authority or our job to try to judge whether someone's going to be a goat or a sheep. You know, we're to stay humble and not say nothing, especially when it comes to eternal destination of others, because we don't know what Yahuwah is going to do, because Yahuwah says, I'll put favor upon whoever I want to favor, and we don't want to deal with that. You know, that's his territory, and he'll have compassion on whomever he wants to have compassion on. And that's nothing to do with us. Okay. He may have compassion on one person who thinks that they don't deserve compassion. And then he may not have compassion on another who thinks they're holier than anybody. They were the best person walking in their air. And he might see it otherwise and throw them in the lake of fire. So we don't play with that. We have no business even talking about it, really. It's really Yahuwah's world. That's his thing. We probably shouldn't even really talk about it. So if you're wondering what happens to somebody who fails to repent, they'll come up to the second resurrection and be judged at the white throne. Let's just leave it at that. So along with the ashes of the red heifer being added to waters, living waters of purification for purification purposes, there was also several other elements that were put in to this living waters. If you know, living waters, other people kind of get that confused. So what living waters really to the Hebrew, we'll say, was or is water that we can drink. Okay, it's water you can pick up in a container or whatever and drink it and not die or get sick. Okay, and we all need water to live. If you don't have water, you're going to die. And it ain't going to take too long for you to die if you don't have living water to drink. Isn't that ironic? So living waters is waters that you can drink, and it gives you life, and you do not get sick or die from drinking it. That's living waters. All right, so don't get that confused. So 3 other elements were put into this, along with the ashes of the red heifer, and that was hyssop. Some say cedar wood, others say like a sponge type material, and then scarlet thread. They're mixed into this water. So these other 3 elements were all used in the building of the inner sanctuary as well. So the hyssop was used by the priest for sprinkling the blood. The cedar wood, if you will, was used for the posts within the inner sanctuary. And the scarlet thread was used in the curtains, was weaved into the veil, the curtains. So through this mysterious mixing that was instructed by Yahuwah, the set apart elements combined with the ashes of this red heifer, death and life would come together in order to bring forth cleansing and purification, which would allow a person to cross the bridge from impurity to purity. You see that? This is the type. This is the foreshadowing of what was the real message, that we have to be able to see the real message. Just seeing the literal, getting that vision of our carbon copy reality is going to help us a whole lot. But once we start to look beyond that and through that and get that spiritual understanding of what's really going on in reality, in the spiritual dimension where Yahuwah is, then things start happening. We start understanding a whole lot of things. So this water and blood combo, along with a few other mysterious elements, was used for cleansing purification purposes, which sounds a whole lot like the blood of Yahusha, doesn't it? Isn't Yahusha our mediator? Isn't he the gate, the door that we go through in order to reach Yahuwah? Isn't he the bridge? Bridge is the gap between the flesh and the spiritual realm, so you can come cross over? Yes, he is. That's the reality. That's the spiritual part. We have to be able to see that. If you can't see that, that means your mind's stuck. You're stuck in the miry mud and clay. You're in the pit. You haven't come out of the pit yet. Sometimes people don't. You know, man, I've seen people with a clear mind as far as physical or literal go, but unable to can't even see just the slightest bit of the spiritual dimension. They just don't see it. It blows my mind. It shows me how strong the will of Yahuwah is. We'll get deep into that once we get into Scripture. We're going to hit on that real big here in a few minutes. I'm just trying to build up to this so y'all kind of see what we're going to be talking about. Powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. So the Brit Chadasha, what they call the New Testament, or the Nazarene writings is what the Nazarene call them, memoirs, also speaks of the ashes of the red heifer, promising that the blood of the Mashiach has greater power to cleanse our conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim. This, of course, is found in Hebrews 9. This is extremely powerful stuff right here. Okay, you have to understand here how easily Yahuwah shows us the physical or the literal, and then the spiritual right along with it, and most people don't pick it up. They don't get it, even though he says it pretty clear in Hebrews 9. Let's go there. Hebrews 9, 13 and 14 says, "For the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer," see, there it is, speaking about this mysterious blend of living water, right? With blood and ashes and these other things. The ashes of a heifer, sprinkling the defiled or the unclean or the impure, sets apart for the cleansing of the flesh. Cleansing of the flesh. How much more shall the blood of the Mashiach, who through the everlasting Ruach offered himself unblemished to Yahuwah, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Yahuwah? Look how clear that is. So 13 is cleansing of the flesh, because this is the literal, the physical, the carbon copy type, the foreshadowing. And then 14, he comes right back around and gives you the spiritual meaning connected to it that you need to see in order to be walking in the spirit and the truth. How much more shall the blood of the Mashiach, who through the everlasting Ruach offered himself unblemished to you, cleanse your conscience from the dead works, that's up in verse 13, to serve the living Yahuwah. By walking in the spirit and truth and seeing the spiritual application attached to the physical. You see that? Look how clear it is. It's very clear. So, remember when I said that Miriam, the sister of Aaron and Moshe, was connected to the living waters, but she was, of course, the physical type, the literal type. She wasn't the reality, all right, the spiritual reality or the truth, all right. But she was the representation, let's say, if you will, of the literal. And it's kind of weird, but it's there. And so we'll try to get a look at it real quick. Then the children of Yisrael, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Sin in the first month, and the people stayed at Kadesh, and Miriam died there and was buried there. So we've learned about her death in Numbers 20. So if we go over to Numbers 20, we'll see where it picks up here with this death of Miriam in 20, verse 1. So besides the symbolism of life and death in the waters of purification, we can also learn here in this little short passage about Miriam, in the wilderness of Zin, how she's connected to living water. So it's kind of strange, but I'm going to try to ease through it here. So Miriam died about 1 year before the children of Israel entered the promised land. Okay. And she has a connection to the literal or physical connection to living water, or to water, we'll say. And living water because there was life in both incidences where she was involved twice in Scripture with water. Okay, so if you kind of pick up what I'm laying down there. So before her death, the last time we read about her, as she was stricken with leprosy as a sort of a punishment for speaking out against Moshe's choice of wife, which was a Cushite, or an Ethiopian woman, if you will. And the leprosy caused Miriam to be defiled or impure. And so she was exiled from the camp of the children of Israel for 7 days. And Moshe prayed and cried out to Yahusha to heal Miriam, his sister. And he did. And so Miriam, she lived many years after that. And after she was healed of leprosy, and apparently she never again allowed her pride or arrogance to cause her to speak against the leadership of Moshe, the chosen of Yahuwah. So Miriam, through Scripture, played an important role in the prophetic fulfillment of Yahuwah's promise to bring Israel out of Miriam. And the two biggest highlights involved water. She was the one who carefully watched over baby Moshe as he floated among the reeds of the Nile River in a basket. She intervened and offered her mother's services as a wet nurse when Pharaoh's daughter rescued baby Moshe from the alligators and the crocodiles of the Nile. So Miriam led the procession of women singing, dancing, rejoicing with tambourines after Elohim safely led the Israelites through the Red Sea onto dry land after the drowning of the pursuing armies of Egypt. So although Miriam was considered a leader and a prophetess, her death is mentioned only briefly in scriptures. No mention is made of the unusual mourning period. Some people suggest that, and through the Talmud and other things, suggests that Moshe and Aaron buried her in the middle of the night. And it seems that Moses and the people did not mourn her properly as they did Moshe and Aaron. So there's a connection to that. And it seems that after Miriam's death, the people thirsted for water and grumbled and complained yet again against Yahuwah. In Numbers 25, it says, "And why have you brought us up out of Miriam to bring us to this evil place? Not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." So in Psalms 128:3, it says, "A vine can represent a mother at home with her children like shoots all around her table." Therefore, some commentaries say that the people who complained were mourning the loss of Miriam, who was like a mother to the Israelites, especially the women and children. If this is true, they were misdirecting their anguish toward Yahuwah. Now, according to Yahudite tradition, a water-bearing rock followed the Israelites in the wilderness, but dried up and disappeared at Miriam's death. We can read in 1 Corinthians 10:1-4, and confirm this rock that seemed to follow the children of Israel around and give them water until after Miriam's death. So go to 1 Corinthians 10. This will be 1 Corinthians 10:1-4. "For I do not wish you to be ignorant, brothers, that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were immersed into Moshe in the cloud and in the sea. Don't forget, Moshe is a type or shadow of Yahusha. And all ate the same ruach-like food. This is the living words, was fed to them by Aaron. And all drank the same ruach-like drink, which was supposedly supplied through the rock that followed them around. The water, living water came forth, representing Miriam, which is a foreshadow or type of the Ruach HaKodesh. This is all spiritual stuff, man. I know some of you are scratching your head and saying, what? But this is the spiritual side. Remember? This is all, this literal physical stuff is just training. We got to get the vision, man. You have to get the vision. You have to pass from the physical into the spiritual to get the vision, the proper vision here. And all drank the same ruach-like drink, for they drank of that ruach-like rock that followed. See, it followed them around wherever they went, and living waters flowed from it and gave them water so they could sustain and stay alive. That's just the physical application. The spiritual is obviously, and the rock was Mashiach. What? Is somebody pulling our leg and playing games with us here? No, not at all. The Ruach is letting you see your physical limitations, and then he's opening your eyes up to the spiritual realm, spiritual dimension where truth and love resides, the reality. This is just a carbon copy world we're in. Got to wake up, snap out of it. Know where you're at. Know where you're going. And the rock was Mashiach. Wow. Now, let me read that to you again with no interruptions. Listen closely. For I do not wish you to be ignorant, brothers, that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea. And all were immersed into Moshe in the cloud and in the sea. And all ate the same ruach-like food, and all drank the same ruach-like drink. For they drank of that ruach-like rock that followed, and the rock was Mashiach. However, with most of them Yahuwah was not well pleased, for they were laid low in the wilderness. And these became examples for us, so that we should not lust after evil as those indeed lusted. Wow, powerful stuff. I hope that woke some of you up and you got a glimpse into the spiritual realm. I'm sure some of you did. I know I did. So this rock is called the well of Miriam because the water that flowed from it was based on her merit, on her obedience, on her actions. She was connected, meaning she represented the spiritual, Mashiach, the Ruach HaKodesh, the living waters. Are you seeing it? There's some Jewish Yehuda tradition, if you will, that fills some of the gaps found in this writing, this passage. And fills in a little bit more about the account of her death, and that follows up with this passage. And it goes like this. Now, this isn't scriptural. This is Jewish midrash, if you will, filling these gaps. Miriam died and the well was taken away so that Israel would recognize that it was through her merit that they had the well in the first place. Moshe and Aaron were weeping inside, and the children of Israel were weeping outside. And for 6 hours, Moshe did not know that the well was dried up until the children of Yisrael entered and said to him, "For how long will you sit and cry?" He said to them, "Should I not cry for my sister who died?" They said to him, "While you are crying for one person, cry for all of us." And he said to them, "Why?" They said to him, "We have no water to drink." He got up from the ground and went out and saw the well without a drop of water in it. And he began to argue with them. Okay, so that's some traditional writing about that situation. So whether or not someone should believe or does not believe, whether a rock actually followed them around wherever they went and stopped and provided living water for them, waters flowed from that rock, or that Yahuwah gave them water wherever they went through his miraculous means. The one thing for sure is that he did show mercy for their thirst for the living waters, telling Moshe to speak to the rock to bring forth water. Now this gets interesting. Get that in back to Numbers 20, verse 10. But nevertheless, before following through on Yahuwah's command to speak to the rock to bring forth water for the children of Israel, to give them water, Moshe responded in anger to their complaining and grumbling. Or perhaps anger, maybe Moshe was displaying anger at Yahuwah for the death of his sister, Miriam. It really don't say, but it does say this in Numbers 20:10. "Listen, you rebels, shall we get water for you out of this rock?" So he's scorning them rather than obeying Yahuwah by speaking to the rock to bring forth living water. Are we getting this? Speaking to the rock, Yahusha, to the name of Yahuwah, to bring forth living waters, to save the people from death. That's the spiritual application. You seeing it? Instead, he scorned the children of Yisrael. So what did he do? He disobeyed Yahuwah. He went out there and let them have it. Gave them everything that he wanted to say to them. "Listen, you rebels, you lowlifes, shall we get water for you out of this rock, or should I just let you die?" And basically what he's saying, I'm paraphrasing, but that wasn't a nice thing to say. And he wasn't commanded to go say that. He was commanded to go speak to the rock to bring forth water. It's kind of obvious that that rock was following them around, wasn't it? You see the spiritual application to the rock following them around with the living water and feeding them living waters so they could live. It's a Ruach HaKodesh, right? Yahusha spirit follows us around and gives us living water so we may live. You seeing it? This is all just a training, man, for the reality. And in order to live the reality, we have to be in the spiritual realm. Can't be in this fleshly realm, this physical carbon copy world and body and mind. If you are, you're stuck. You can't cross over. You're stuck in your cell and in your prison. You got to come out of your cell. You got to come out of your prison in order to be free. The Ruach sets you free from your cell and from your prison so that you can walk in the Ruach, walk in the spiritual dimension and truth with Yahuwah. All right. So perhaps maybe Moshe was mad because he was still thinking of his sister who had just recently died. And maybe he had not been given ample time to properly mourn her. And he was still hurt and upset about it. This may have caused him to misdirect his anger toward the children of Israel, toward the people. And maybe in his anger and in his frustration, and frustration over not properly having the proper time to mourn for his sister, is why Moshe may have struck that rock twice. And water gushed out and given the people water to drink. But Yahuwah had told Moshe to speak to the rock, not to strike it or discipline the children of Israel. So Moses failed. He failed to model obedience. He failed to show the spiritual insight that he had in all this. And at a time when all of Israel was looking to him for that leadership. So one of the worst times possible for him to be disobedient and to show anger and frustration. So not only did Yahusha tell Moshe to speak to the rock so it would bring forth living waters for the people. Wow, see the spiritual application of that? He didn't speak to the rock. He went to the people. So how can a man go straight to another man and give them living water? Providing them with living water. He can't. He can only supply them with death, anger, frustration. See that? So that's why he was told to go speak to the rock, which is Yahusha, in order and ask him to give the people the living waters, the Ruach HaKodesh that they needed to have life and life more abundantly. And he surely didn't tell him to strike it. So not only by striking the rock once, indicating the death of the Mashiach, the sacrifice, but twice, sacrificed him twice by striking the rock twice, killing him twice, quenching the Ruach HaKodesh twice, denying the people who were seeking out the Mashiach, not in blocking them, not to get the living waters they needed, which was the Ruach HaKodesh. Are you seeing that? You see the spiritual application? It's all through Scripture. Powerful stuff, man. He struck the rock twice. He smacked Yahusha in the face once. He turned his cheek and he smacked the other cheek. But yet water gushed out, giving the people water to drink. He still sacrificed for the people and gave them the living waters to drink so they could have life and life more abundantly. That's mind-blowing stuff right there. I can go a little bit deeper into that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let you all use your own spiritual insight and see if it'll take you there. Moses failed, man. He failed to be obedient. He failed to be a role model for the children of Israel at a time where Israel needed it the most. They were thirsty. They were going to die. They did not have any living water to sustain them, to keep them alive, to give them life and life more abundantly. They were heading to the grave. They were going to die. Wow. There was no deliverance in sight. And Moshe failed them. You ever wonder why Moshe didn't get to go to the promised land, which is also a type or foreshadow of the reign of Yahuwah? That's a scary thought, isn't it? Therefore, the name of the water was called Meribah, which means to anger, strive, or contend. So Numbers 20:13 says, those were the waters of Meribah, because the sons of Israel contended with Yahuwah, and he proved himself set apart among them. So this particular word, then, Meribah, can also be connected to Miriam. It can be read Meribah, which means Yam is in it. That is, Miriam is in the waters of contention. Interesting, isn't it? Although the name Miriam in Hebrew means bitterness, it can also be read Mary Yam, Mary of the sea. So in yet another way, the woman of the sea is connected to the waters flowing out of the rock after her death. All right, so although Moshe never mentioned Miriam again after her death, and although she seemed to have been buried quickly and secretly without any great public ceremony or anything, the memory of her has been irrepressible. Like Moshe's anger that caused him to disobey Yahuwah and strike the rock twice, whatever we repress instead of dealing with will ultimately demand attention, and it might be expressed in ways not pleasing to Yahuwah. For instance, we must take the time to properly come to terms with our feelings of loss. We must take the time to grieve, just as the people did at the end of this Torah reading for Aaron, 6 months later after the death of Miriam. So perhaps Moshe did not take the time or did not have the luxury of that time because of his role as a leader or because the people were extremely thirsty. So furthermore, it seems that Moshe might have not brought his pain and disappointment to Yahuwah. In not doing so, he missed an opportunity to be the model for the people, his trust and belief in Yahuwah's love, who trusted and believed in Yahuwah's love. Instead, he raged and disobeyed. He raged towards them and disobeyed Yahuwah's orders or commands. So just think about that and who he was. So if Yahuwah cannot model his belief during such times of loss, then it's only natural that many of us will suspect that we cannot either. But we can and we must. We can bring to him our deepest pain, our darkest despair, and our broken hearts. He will cleanse us spiritually from our contact with loss and death, and he will heal us with his living waters. And likewise, may we walk in the true pattern of Mashiach. May we be healers, allowing rivers of living water to flow freely out of our inner being to help bring people back into a restored relationship with Yahuwah through the purification we experience in Yahushua HaMashiach, the living waters. Revelation 7:17 says, "For the Lamb in the midst of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of living water. And Yahuwah will wipe away every tear from their eyes." All right. So I hope now through that little story, we were able to retain or obtain a true vision of what was really going on in the reality, the spiritual world. And how people, through the teaching of the Torah, can represent truth, a reality, the spiritual realm. Don't forget the physical and the literal carbon copy is nothing but a type or a foreshadow. It's not real. It's a delusion. Okay. So now let's go ahead and start looking at some scripture on this matter. Let's see now. It's kind of early for intermission. So anybody that wants to read about this purification process of the red heifer and so forth can find that in Numbers 19, 1 through 10. And maybe when you read that again, keep some of this stuff in mind, you'll be able to have a better understanding of the spiritual reality. It's really happening during these ceremonies, these rituals. Okay. I'll try to do my best here to point these out as we go through the scriptures. But there's really some really interesting things here that we're going to get into. So all ears and eyes on the BYNV. Okay, and let's start out and slowly creep our way into the higher stuff. All right, so let's take a look at Isaiah 12, 1 through. Let's just look at the chapter. Go to Isaiah 12. It's a big, long chapter. Watch out now. It's going to take an hour to read this one. Yeah, let's look at Isaiah chapter 12. BYNV. "And in that yom you shall say, I thank you, Yahuwah, though you were enraged with me, your displeasure has turned back, and you have comforted me. See, all is my deliverance. I trust and am not afraid. For Yahuwah, is my strength and my song, and he has become my deliverance. And you shall draw water with joy from the fountains of deliverance. And in that yom you shall say, Praise Yahuwah, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the peoples, make mention that his name is exalted. Sing to Yahuwah, for he has done excellently. This is known in all the earths. Cry aloud and shout, O inhabitant of Zion, for great is the set apart one of Yisrael in your midst. There's a mist, man, mist. You feeling the water on you yet? The mist. Hey, look up there at 3. And you shall draw water with joy from the fountains of deliverance. That's so powerful. Now, you seeing the spiritual application on that? You shall draw water with joy When you get the Ruach, you should feel great joy, extreme joy beyond explanation, beyond words. From the fountains of deliverance, you shall draw water with joy from the fountains of deliverance. What's happening here? Well, this is the Ruach HaKodesh. This is your immersion in the Ruach HaKodesh. That's what this is. Take on the water with joy. Look at Isaiah 55:1. Wasn't that an exciting little chapter? Isaiah 12. Amazing little chapter. Isaiah 55:1. You probably should read that whole chapter too. It's pretty powerful as well. Look at 55:1. Oh, everyone who thirsts. See that? Everyone who thirsts. Come to the man. Come to the waters. And you who have no silver, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without silver and without price. So what's this talking about? Well, it probably has something to do with receiving the Ruach HaKodesh without having to pay for it. Let's go ahead and read through this chapter. This is a good chapter too. Why do you weigh out silver for what is not bread, and you labor for what does not satisfy? Listen to me, and eat what is good, and let your being delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear and come to me. Hear, so that your being lives, and let me make an everlasting covenant with you, the trustworthy kindness of old. See, I have given him as a witness to the people, a leader and a commander for the people. See, a nation you do not know you shall call, and a nation who does not know you run to you. You run to you. Because of Yahuwah, your Elohim, and the set-apart one of Yisrael, for he has adorned you. Seek Yahuwah while he is to be found. Call on him while he is near. Yeah, you can run out of time. You can run out of time, and he can run out of patience. So be careful. Let the wrong forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to Yahuwah, who has compassion on him, and to our Elohim, for he pardons much. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares Yahuwah. For as the Shemayim are higher than the Eretz, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain comes down and the snow from the Shemayim, and do not return there, but water the Eretz, and make it bring forth and bud, and give seed to the sower, and bread to the eater, so is my word. Okay, now he just gave us the physical or the literal understanding here, the foreshadow. Now he's given us the spiritual reality, the truth, attached to vision. Now listen for it. So is my word that goes forth from my mouth. It does not return to me empty, but shall do what I please, and shall certainly accomplish what I sent it for. For with joy you go out, and with peace you are brought in. The mountains and the hills break forth into singing before you, and all the trees of the field clap the hands. Instead of the thorn, the cypress comes up, and instead of the needle, the myrtle comes up. And it shall be to Yahuwah for a name, for an everlasting sign which is not cut off. Wow. You see the spiritual reality of that? I hope you do. You should be able to see that by now. I'm going to move on. I was going to explain it, but I'm going to move on. Let y'all think about that one. I'm sure if you read it enough, you'll get it. I'm sure some of you got it fairly quickly as well. All right, so so now we're going to move into a really important book, or memoir, if you will, and that's Yehukanan. Lots and lots and lots of stuff for us to learn here about this physical and spiritual reality. Let's take a look. In order to understand where Yahuwah's coming from, let's get a look at John 3. And we'll go read 1 through 13 here. All right, so chapter 3, verses 1 through 13. Listen very closely of the words of your Mashiach and how he explains to you that you have to come out of the physical carbon-copied delusion and into the spiritual reality of truth in order to walk across the bridge of impurity to purity. Listen closely to what he says. And there was a man of the Prusium, Nicodemus was his name, a ruler of the Yehudim. This one came to Yahusha by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from Elohim. For no one is able to do these signs you do if Elohim is not with him. Yahusha answered and said to him, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is begotten from above, he is unable to see the reign of Yahuwah. So how is a man begotten from above? Because he receives Yahuwah's seed, which is Yahusha in him. And so you become a son of Yahuwah, a spiritual being now, because you're born from your spiritual father, which is Yahuwah. Okay, and so his seed is the Ruach HaKodesh. This is how you're born from above. Okay, so Nicodemus, this is the spiritual end. This is spiritual attachment, okay? So Nicodemus said to him, how is a man able to be begotten when he is old? Is he able to enter into his mother's womb a second time and be born? So here Nicodemus is not understanding the spiritual application of this. He's only seeing the physical, the literal. That's all he's seeing. He's just totally blown away. He has no knowledge, no spiritual insight at this point anyway. So Yahusha answered, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is begotten of water and the Ruach, he is unable to enter into the reign of Yahuwah. So he's telling him right now, you have to receive the seed of Yahuwah, which is the Ruach HaKodesh. That's how you're born again. That's how you're born from above. You're now a son of Yahuwah. That's what he's telling him. That which has been begotten of the flesh is flesh. That means if you were begotten through procreation of a human, the way humans procreate, through sexual intercourse and so forth and so on, sperm and eggs and all that, okay, you're flesh. Flesh is flesh, period. Yet that which has been begotten of the Ruach is Ruach. Wow. So there it is. So your Ruach means you become this a spiritual child now. Now your father is spiritual, so you're spiritual, your spiritual father, and his seed is the Ruach HaKodesh in you. That's how you become a spiritual being. And this is how you walk in the spiritual realm as a spiritual child of Yahuwah, son of light. which means you have life, and life more abundantly. If you have eternal life, don't you have a more abundant life than you do when you have temporary life? Born of the flesh, and is flesh eats flesh. Do not marvel that I said to you, you have to be gotten from above. The Ruach breathes where it wishes. He's talking about the air now, the breeze, not the Ruach HaKodesh, because it can mean that, even though that's got a capital R on it. The Ruach breathes where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it, but do not know where it comes from and where it goes. So is everyone who has been begotten of the Ruach. Now that's the Ruach HaKodesh, the seed of Yahuwah, which is Yahushua HaMashiach, right? Nicodemus answered and said to him, how is it possible for this to take place? No spiritual insight. You can't see me. You're looking through your carbon copy eyes. Yahuwah answered and said to him, are you the teacher of Yesharel and do not know this? Truly, truly, I say to you, we speak what we know and witness what we have seen, and you do not receive our witness. If you do not believe when I spoke to you about earthly matters, flesh is gotten of the flesh is flesh, earthly matters, fleshly things, delusional things. How are you going to believe when I speak to you about the heavenly matters? Begotten of the Ruach is Ruach, heavenly matters, spiritual things, spiritual language, spiritual insight, spiritual existence, spiritual walk, spiritual truth. How are you going to get it? You can't even understand the earthly things. Pitiful, man. And no one has gone up into the heaven except he who came down from the heaven, the son of Adam. I just read this because I just want you to see this, that when it says, except he who came down, is implying a descension. So he descended, which means he had to pre-exist the incarnation. All right. If he came down, it means he descended. It means he pre-existed the incarnation. So no one has come up except he who came down and then ascended back. See that? So his origination, he originated from the Shemayim, not from the Ruach having sex and impregnating Mary with some kind of sperm. It wasn't flesh to flesh. If it was, then he would have been flesh, total flesh. There would have been no divine nature. So he had to come from Ruach, to be Ruach. So he had two natures. Okay, so very interesting stuff, right? All right, so let's go over here now to the woman at the well. There'll be Yehukanan, chapter 4. And there's hardly, I mean, you can't even really go into this without starting up here, at least like around verse 7. I mean, the heart of the matter is 13 and 14. But I guess we're going to have, this is such an important passage here to understanding the spiritual and the physical that we probably need to read most of it. So let's go up and start at chapter 4 on verse 7, if you will. Okay. So it says, and Asha of Samarita came to draw water. Yahusha said to her, give me to drink. for his pupils had gone off into the city to buy food. The Asha of Samaritan, or Shamaron, therefore said to him, how is it that you, being a Yehuda, ask a drink from me, an Asha of Samaritan? For Yehudim do not associate with the Samaritans. And Yahusha answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of Elohim, what is that? It's the Ruach HaKodesh. And who it is who says to you, give me to drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Now he's talking about what? The Ruach HaKodesh. That's what. If you drink the Ruach HaKodesh, you're going to live forever. It's something you have to do. You have to receive the Ruach. The Asha said to him, Master, you have no vessel, and the well is deep. From where then do you have living water? And she's seeing the living waters as that clean water down below in that well that she can drink at and quench her thirst and live, feed her body, right? Living water that doesn't make you sick or kills you. It's not poison water. It's not tainted. It doesn't have bacteria in it. It's clean, pure drinking water that sustains life, all right, in this physical world. But we all know that the living waters Yahusha is talking to her about now, the living waters is the Ruach HaKodesh, which gives you life and life more abundantly. Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself and his sons and his cattle? Boy, is she in the physical world. You see where her mind is, right? You can see the literal, the physical, the type, the foreshadowing of what she's saying is she's consumed within the delusion of the world. You can see that pretty clearly. Yahusha answered and said to her, everyone drinking of this water shall thirst again. He said, you can drink it all you want. You're going to get thirsty again. Not too long from now, you'll be thirsty again, right? But whoever drinks of the water I give him shall certainly never thirst. And the water that I give him shall become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. See there? So there's powerful confirmation now that the Ruach HaKodesh is water springing up into everlasting life. It's giving you living waters that's going to give you life and life more abundantly, meaning everlasting life. Okay? So now we see the spiritual truth being spoken by our Mashiach. Everybody should be able to see it now. Should be able to see the physical, the literal carbon copy, the foreshadowing, mind of the flesh in this woman. And we all should see the spiritual reality, the truth coming out of the words of our Mashiach. They're talking about two different things, but yet the subject's water. See that? So that should help you start seeing the reality between the two, that there is actually a carbon copied delusion and a spiritual reality, which is truth, which is reality, which is real, which is what's really going on. And we're blinded to it because we fell. The Asha said to him, Master, give me this water. Yeah, I'd be asking for it too. As soon as he said the water he'll give her gives you everlasting life, I'd be asking for it too. She's a pretty wise woman here. She give me this water. Can you blame her for asking for it? So that I do not thirst nor come here to draw. What she's really getting to now. Okay, give me the water. It's going to give me everlasting life, that I'll never thirst again. I don't have to come here and draw this water out of this well anymore. I can just sustain off of the living water that you give me. Have everlasting life, never be thirsty again. I want that water. Give me that water. Give me some of that. I'd be asking for it too. And so should you. We all should be asking for that. So Yahusha said to her, go call your husband and come here. And the Asha answered and said, I have no husband. Yahusha said to her, you have said, well, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true. Yahusha said to him, Master, I see that you're a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where one needs to worship. Don't forget now that Mashiach came during the old priesthood. It was still in effect. The temple was still erect, and they were still practicing the old priesthood rituals and ceremonies, animal blood sacrifice and male circumcision, these type things. Yahusha said to her, Asha, believe me, the hour is coming when you shall neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, because the deliverance is of the Yehudim. So how is it that these people worship what they do not know? Because they're not in the spiritual realm. They're still in the delusion, in the physical, literal, carbon-copied world that they're trapped in, and they're still in the mind of the flesh. So they do not know what they worship. How can they? Because they're in the mind of the flesh. You have to be in the mind of the Ruach. You have to enter into the spiritual realm, into reality, in order to know Yahuwah and to know who you're worshiping, because he's a spirit. And you have to know him, you have to learn to worship in spirit and truth. Otherwise, you don't know who you're worshiping. You're going to worship something physical and literal, because that's the world you're in. A stone, a carved stone, a statue, an old rugged cross, wood, totem pole, all kinds of weird stuff that's in this world. You're going to worship it because that's where your mind is. You're part of the delusion. You're part of the physical, the literal carbon copy world, man. You don't even know a spiritual world exists. And if you think it exists, you still deny it. He's cuckoo, man. He's talking about spirits and stuff. That's why they don't know who they worship, because they're not worshiping a spirit, Yahuwah, who is spirit. You have to be a spirit to worship a spirit. You can't be a flesh and worship spirit. You're going to worship flesh. That's what he's talking about. You worship what you do not know, because you're spirit, because you're flesh. We worship what we know, because the deliverance is of the Yehudim, because we're spiritual children of Yahuwah. We can see into the different dimension than you can. We know Yahuwah's Ruach. We know he's real. We witness his power. See what I'm saying? So Ruach is Ruach, and flesh is flesh. You can't intermix. You can't be in the mind of the flesh and worship in the Ruach, and you can't worship in the Ruach and go back to worshiping in the flesh. Once you cross over, you're set apart. You can't go back and forth anymore unless you're cuckoo. Double-minded, that means you're cuckoo. Your mind ain't right. You have mental issues. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers, this is powerful stuff here now. This, everybody needs to drop to their knees and cry out to Yahuwah on this one. The hour is coming and now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in Ruach and truth. For the Father also seeks such to worship him. Elohim is Ruach, and those who worship him need to worship in Ruach and truth. See that? That's what I was just talking about. Literal. You don't know who you're worshiping if you're worshiping in the flesh with the fleshly mind and using religion, religious understandings. You don't know who you're worshiping. You have to be in Ruach in order to worship Yahuwah, who is Ruach. Got to cross over, folks. You got to. You got to become a Hebrew. Hebrew. That's what a bird said to me one time. I guess Yahuwah sent the bird. I was outside in the corner of my property, just standing there minding my business. And all of a sudden, out of the tree, I heard, Hebrew. And I ignored it. A little while, a few minutes later, Hebrew. And I ignored it. A few minutes later, Hebrew. And then I didn't ignore it anymore. I said, what? That's whatever that is that a bird? Whatever's doing that is saying Hebrew. It was plain as the nose on your face. I didn't have any problem understanding what the word I was hearing was. It was Hebrew, without a shadow of a doubt. And so I listened again and said, Hebrew. And I looked, I was just staring at him. What bird is doing that? I had come to the conclusion it was a bird. I said, I know, and I've never heard of a bird that sounds like it says in Hebrew. Now, I have heard of a Bob White, and I've heard them, and they do say Bob White. They say Bob White. And it sounds like they're saying Bob White for sure. I've never heard of a bird saying Hebrew. So I kept looking and everything, and pretty soon this red cardinal, which I know for a fact doesn't sound like Hebrew, come flying out of this pine tree right across my face in front of my eyeballs and stayed at that level of flight clear across my lake and on over to the other side, over the little hill where I didn't see it no more. He was gone. And then I never heard that Hebrew again. So I thought that had to be the bird that was saying that. And cardinals don't say that. So that must have been from Yahuwah. Maybe he was telling me I crossed over at that particular time. He was announcing to me that I had crossed over and became a Hebrew. That's what I think. But that's just speculation. Anyway, this is interesting, man. When he says, the Father is Ruach and truth. When the true worshiper shall worship the Father in Ruach and truth, you ain't talking about the flesh at all here now. You've done transformed. You've crossed over into Hebrew. You've become a Hebrew. For the Father also seeks such to worship him. He's seeking people like that. That's who he wants. That's who he's seeking. That's who he's searching for. Don't you want to be that type of person? If that's who Yahuwah is searching for? Or do you want to be an old, bump on log sitting there in your little literal physical world saying, there's no way. That's not what Scripture says. It's pretty clear. I read it right there. And you're taking everything that's written literally. Why? Because you've been brainwashed to do that as a child, especially if you grew up with the KJV. People that use the KJV love to teach the children to take the KJV literally, word for word, and which is a total upsetting to me because of several facts. One is they're not getting the spiritual insight, so they can't enter into the spiritual realm where Yahuwah insists that you must be in order for him to seek you out and find you. That's where he wants you. For the Father also seeks such to worship him in the Ruach, in truth. Elohim is Ruach. And those who worship him need to worship in Ruach, in truth. So it's kind of upsetting in a way that they teach these children that, because it takes away spiritual insight. They don't get to enter into the spiritual realm where truth and love resides. They have to stay in the delusion. It's basically what they're telling them to do. So that's pretty much it. I mean, we can go a little bit further. Skip down to 28. And the Asha then left her water pot. Now, isn't that, I mean, just think of that. Most people read that and they never think anything about that. The Asha then left her water pot and went away to the city. Why'd she leave that water pot? Have you ever thought about that? Oh, she was just excited and she forgot it. Maybe, perhaps. And perhaps maybe she left her water pot there because she knew that water wasn't going to bring her life. She didn't want that water anymore. She didn't want that substitute water. She didn't want that water, that physical water. She was going to drink it and then she'd thirst again. And eventually, without it, she would die and go to her grave. Maybe she didn't want that anymore. Maybe her desire was for living waters. And so you just left that old pot of water sit there, said, I don't need that no more. Maybe she kicked it over as she ran. That's what I kind of imagine her doing. But anyway, going to 31, but in the meantime, his Talmudim were asking him, saying, Rabbi, eat. And he said to them, I have food to eat of which you do not know. So now we're switching from water to food. Then the Talmudim said to each other, did anyone bring him food to eat? And Yahusha said to them, my food is to do the desire of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. So that's amazing there. And so now you're seeing the literal, the physical, speaking of eating carbon food, which you will eat it. Then you're going to get hungry again. And if you don't eat it, eventually you will die. There's no life in it. Versus the food to do the desire of Yahuwah, of him who sent me, and to accomplish his work. And so that the food, the manna from heaven, is the food that sustains us and gives us life. And so that's the food we eat, which is the words or the Besorah of Yahusha. Interesting, right? So it should be clear there, the literal, the physical versus the spiritual food. The physical, the literal, the carbon copy, the flesh, the food has to eat. The carbon food doesn't do anything for you. It just gets you along a few more steps, a few more days, and then you need it again. And it can't give you life. It only brings you death. Same with the water that the woman left in her water pot and took off, knowing it wouldn't give her life. Okay, so you see the spiritual now and the literal. This is how you will start beginning to live in the spirit and the Ruach, and how you can walk in the Ruach and truth, because you enter into the reality. The spiritual world's our reality. It's where the truth and love resides. The carbon copy world is the delusional world. The spirit of delusion resides there and keeps you in the darkness, and death soon follows. It's just a delusion, folks. We're living in a delusion. All right. So, do you not say there are still 4 moons and the harvest comes? See, I say to you, lift up your eyes and see the fields, for they are white for harvest already. There again is a literal and a spiritual understanding. Can we start to walk in the Ruach and truth now? Are we waking up to what's going on? We should be. There are still 4 moons and 4 harvests in the harvest comes. After 4 more moons, 4 more months, the harvest comes. It's the literal. That's living in the delusion. See, I say to you, lift up your eyes and see the fields, for they are white for harvest already. The kingdom is now. That's the spiritual reality. Go collect your fruit. Go get your fruit, Nazarene. You have to bring fruit with you. If you do not bring fruit, you're a dried up branch. You'll be snapped off, bundled up for the fire. If you do not produce fruit, get out there and work that harvest, Nazarene. You see the spiritual of it, the reality of it. This is where life is. This is where light is. This is where life exists in the spiritual reality where truth and love resides. Not sitting there waiting for 4 more months so you can go out and collect your fruit, your harvest off the trees. That's just going to lead to death. You're going to have to do it again next year. And again next year and the year after. Until as long as Yahuwah allows you to walk in the dust and breathe. Listen to this. He who is reaping receives a reward and gathers fruit for everlasting life. Now, is that a literal, delusional, carbon copy, or is this spiritual truth? Is this the reality, the real existence, everlasting, eternal existence? What is it? He who is reaping receives a reward and gathers fruit for everlasting life, so that both he who is sowing and he who is reaping rejoice together. For in this the word is true. One sows, another reaps. I send you to reap that for which you have not labored. Others have labored, and you have entered into their labors. This is all spiritual. First of all, there's no delusion here. And this is how much Yahuwah loves you with the everlasting love, that he's willing to let you reap what others have labored, what others have done, what others have sown, what others have watered. He's allowing you to go in there and reap it, collect that fruit and bring it to him, present it as first fruits to him, so that you can let you enter into their labors, take their fruit, present it to him as a first fruit, so he'll allow you into the reign because you didn't come empty-handed. That's how much he loves you. That's powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. All right. So as you can see, Yehukanan 4 is a very powerful chapter. Yeah, get a chance, read the whole chapter and dwell on it. It's good stuff, man. So let's take a look over here now at John 7:38. Let's go to 37, 38, and 39. John 7. And on the last Yom, the great Yom of the festival, Yahuwah stood and cried out, saying, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me, and let him who believes in me drink. As the scripture said, out of his innermost shall flow rivers of living water. And this he said concerning the Ruach, which those believing in him were about to receive. For the Ruach HaKodesh was not yet given, because Yahusha was not yet esteemed. Okay, this is good stuff here, man. This is very, very deep. Some of us may not understand this meaning unless you've been studying for a while. You probably haven't run across what's going on here. But what's happening here, this is the last great day in the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, so there's 8 days. The first day and the 8th day are feasts. But on the 7th day, they have what they call a water drawing ceremony. The Yehudim did. And each day they would do the ceremony, and the high priest and then the people would watch, and they would do it one time all the way till the 7th day. Then they would do it 7 times, and then on the 8th day they didn't do it at all. And so on this 8th day, this particular day, the last great day, if you will, and the grand finale of all feasts, if you will, is when Yahusha said this: out of the innermost shall flow rivers of living water. If anyone thirsts, let him come to me, and let him who believes in me drink. Okay, see, so the water drawing ceremony was over, but yet the people thirsted. And so Yahusha stood up in front of the priests and all these people and announced that he was the living waters. If you're thirsty, come to him and drink. This was a very powerful thing for Yahusha to do at this particular moment, at this time, during this 8th day festival. Okay, so to understand it just a little bit better, we need to get, let me just talk about this just a little bit to you here from this little article I found explaining it. I had done a ton of research on this a few years back, and I couldn't find my notes. I'm having a problem finding my notes. I don't know what in the world, where they're at. I have so many files I just can't find. I don't know what I did with them. It could be on another computer that crashed or something, because this is like my 3rd computer. So anyway, let me read this to you here. It's kind of short, won't take long. He starts about Yahusha being the living waters here on this 8th day. Okay, the tabernacles and what, kind of how it fits. So it is in this setting that we find Yahusha in 7:9, John 7:9. It's the 8th day of tabernacles. So we are told that Yahusha arrived midway through the feast on the 8th day. His first few days at the temple were filled with confrontations concerning the authority of his teachings. That's in John 7:15 through 36. Then on the last day, the great day of the feast, it's talking about here in 7:37 and 38 39. Yahusha stood and issued this challenge: if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. He that believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly, or out of his innermost, if you will, shall flow rivers of living water. Then, isn't that strange that he said it that way? Then Yehukanan added, but this spoke, he spoke this concerning the Ruach, and this he said concerning the Ruach, which those believing in him were about to receive That is the Ruach HaKodesh, which is given to those who come into the belief in the Ruach brings life and life more abundantly to their spirits or to their inner beings, the spirit of man, okay? So the impact of this challenge is lost unless one understands the water drawing ceremony of the Feast of Tabernacles that we've talked about. So having daily drawn from the pool of Siloam, then pouring it on the morning offering while shouting, "Deliver us, Master." The absence of the water drawing ceremony on the 8th day would have been profound. See, they didn't do it on the 8th day. They just did it on the 7 days. And the people would shout, "Deliver us, Yahuwah, deliver us, Yahuwah, deliver us, Elohim," okay? And so on the 8th, they didn't do that. And remember, on the 7th, they went around 7 times saying that. But on the other 6 days, they only said it once. So on the day when the living water was not drawn from the spring, the Gihon spring, by the priest and brought up to the slaughtering, and only a prayer for rain was offered on that 8th day. This day then perhaps symbolized Israel's dependence upon Yahuwah for water that sustains life. The Mashiach, the Savior, declared that if any thirsted, Yahushua declared that if any thirsted on this 8th day, they should come to him for living waters. However, the water he offered was not for physical or literal, but spiritual survival. Spiritual survival. His water was the cleansing and sustaining influence of the Ruach HaKodesh necessary for deliverance of the spirits of mankind, of humanity. Interestingly enough, the Jerusalem Talmud states that Yehudai understood the water drawing ceremony to be symbolic of the Ruach HaKodesh. They got that. Why is the name of it called the drawing out of water? Because of the pouring out of the Ruach HaKodesh, according to what is said. With joy shall you draw water out of the wells of deliverance. So the prayers of the priests and the pilgrims attending the Feast of Tabernacles had been answered, but not in the way they had expected. The Ruach HaKodesh had revealed himself in the flesh to them and offered them to drink of the living waters of eternity, which was him. Be immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh and live forever. Drink of the living waters. Is Yahuwah made of water? It's a very interesting question, folks. Matter of fact, science says that everything that we know of has water in it. Only a few rocks and a few minerals known to man that does not have water. Everything else has water. It's an amazing question and thought, really. So Yahushua is the light of the world. He's the light. He's life. And if we have life, we're in the light. If we're in darkness, we're in death. We have death. So Yahushua is the light of the world. He's the life of man. He's the light of man. He said gives life to men. It's Yahushua, the Ruach HaKodesh, man. You got to have him. On the day following the Mashiach's challenge to come to him for living water, the deliverer was once again at the temple teaching. While in the court of women, our deliverer, declared to the multitude, I am the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. That's John 8:12, if you want to look it up. Now look, man, are we seeing the spiritual application to this yet versus the literal? I hope you are. It's very important to see it. So could there be any doubt in the minds of his listeners during Eighth Day of Tabernacles as to what Yahusha was claiming? In the very place where the huge candelabras were lit, giving light to every courtyard in Jerusalem, symbolizing the continuous light given to all the world during the Messianic age, Yahusha proclaimed that he was that light. Not only the light of Jerusalem, but of all the world. Even Yehudite tradition held that Elohim gives man light. It is obvious that he was claiming to be the Messiah in their own ears, in their own hearing. To give credence to his claim, the deliverer demonstrated his power to give light to the world through a miracle that is recorded only by Yehuchanan in Yehuchanan 9:1-7. The story of a man born blind follows on the heels of the Feast of Tabernacles. The story begins when Yahusha saw a man which was blind from his birth. When asked why, the deliverer responded that the works of Elohim should be made manifest in him. Then he said, I must work the works of him that sent me, while it is day, when night comes, when no man can work. And long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Upon that he spit on the ground and made clay of the spittle, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay and said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam. The man did exactly what he was told. After he had washed his eyes in the same pool that the priest had drawn water as part of the water drawing ceremony during the Feast of Tabernacles, he came out seeing. Two major symbols of the Feast of Tabernacles, water and light, were present in the miracle. By spitting onto the ground, Yahusha demonstrated that indeed the living waters, or the Ruach of the Ruach HaKodesh, or of Yahusha, which can give man light, does indeed come from him. For out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. This is further emphasized by the washing of the waters in the pool of Solomon, which symbolized the Ruach HaKodesh. So in conclusion, folks, it is undeniable that Yahusha's statement during the Feast of Tabernacles are highlighted by the feast itself. The Savior or Deliverer chose a sacred time of the year when the Yehudai looked forward with great rejoicing through ritual action to the coming of the Mashiach. Through the instrumentality of the feast, Yahusha declared that he was the promised Mashiach, that he was the literal fulfillment of everything promised in the Feast of Tabernacles. It is clear from the hostile reactions of the Yehudim that they saw it this way, supposing that by so doing, he was speaking blasphemy. Read John 7:30-32 and John 7:44-53 and John 8:59 to confirm. All right, so there you go. So I hope now with that reading that we all can understand this a little bit more clearly now, what he meant by Out of his innermost shall flow rivers of living water. Very interesting, right? Saying this, it was this concerning the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay. Interesting. So now, I think we've been on here long enough to take a little intermission, a little break. You all can go get yourself a drink, go to the potty, and maybe something to snack on. Get some fresh air or something, stretch, do whatever. And I'll be back here in about 4 or 5 minutes, and we'll continue on with this very, very important study. And it shouldn't be much longer either. It'll only be another hour and a half, I think, and we'll conclude. But okay, I'll see you back here in about 4 or 5 minutes. Intermission time, and I'll play a song for you to enjoy till I get back. See you in a few minutes.
Little creation and all mankind, make a joyful noise to you. Let all the stones on the ground shout your name. Make a joyful noise to you. Let all the trees on the fields clap their hands. Let all the oceans roar. Let all the trumpets and shofars sound. Let all the great high mountains come down. All honor, all praise. You are worthy in all of your ways. You are all power, all love, almighty of heaven and blood. By your blood, by your stripes, by Yahushua who delivers all our lives. You are greatly to be praised. As far as the north to the south, the east to the west, you are greatly to be praised. No treasure upon this earth can compare to your worth. You are greatly to be praised. You walk on the wings of heaven. The earth is your footstool. You are greatly to be praised. You are greatly to be praised. All honor, all praise. You are worthy in all of your ways. Yahuwah, all power, all love, almighty of heaven above. Yahuwah, by your blood, by your stripes, by Yahushua who delivers all our lives. You are greatly to be praised. Greatly to be praised. All honor, all praise. You are worthy in all of your ways. Yahuwah, all power, all love, almighty of heaven above. Yahuwah, by your blood, by your stripes, by Yahushua who delivers all our lives. You are greatly to be praised, greatly to be praised.
All righty, I'm back. Hope everybody enjoyed the intermission and you got stretched out and got you something to drink and snack on. And we're going to move forward. Hopefully you're drinking and eating the Ruach and truth. All righty. So, before we go too much farther into John here, I'd like to back up here to John 2 real fast and just point something out, which I think is kind of cool. But it's in John 2, and it's 2 through 11. Oh, this is about the first sign Yahusha gave, which is interesting. And it says, and on the third Yom, there was a wedding. And the mother of Yahusha was there, and both Yahusha and his pupils were invited to the wedding. And when they were short of wine, the mother of Yahusha said to him, "They have no wine." Which means literally and physically that they didn't have any alcohol to drink, right? But spiritually here now, this is saying they had no truth. They had no life in them. They had only darkness and death. There was no life. There was no truth. They were not living in reality. They were living in the delusion. They have no wine. Okay. Yahusha said to her, "Asha, what is that to me and to you? My hour has not yet come." So now he's starting to hint a little bit about spiritual insight. His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he says to you. Do whatever he says, whatever." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he says to you." So what does that mean? Is that sarcasm? Did she get kind of ticked off at Yahusha because he wouldn't abide to her wishes or what she was wanting him to do? His mother said to the servants, do whatever he says to you." Pretty good advice, really, no matter what her condition, her mental condition was. And there were 6 stone water pots standing there, according to the mode of cleansing of the Yehudim, each holding 2 or 3 measures. Okay. So here, this is water during the mode of cleansing or to purify. This was living water. Okay. And so obviously if someone would drink this water, they wouldn't be sick or die from it. It was drinkable, clean water. And this is what was used for purification purposes for them. Okay, so they didn't use nasty, bacteria-filled, stagnant, muddy water to cleanse themselves or to purify themselves with, or even to immerse themselves with. You see that? It had to be living waters in their minds. That was the Hebrew mind. That's what when they said living waters, that's what was on their mind. Okay, whatever's on our mind don't really matter because this is talking about them. Each holding 2 or 3 measures. So this is purification water. This was fairly large vessels holding clean water. So Yahushua said to them, fill the water pots with water, and they filled them up to the brim. So he wanted them topped off. He wanted you to fill them all the way up to the tippity top. And so they did. And he said to them, now draw out and take it to the master of the feast. So they took it. But when the master of the feast had tasted the water, it had become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when they have drunk it, then that which is poor. You have kept the good wine until now. So literally, we can see this as anybody else in the flesh sees this. That he turned water into wine, and it was high quality wine. It was good wine, and it had a good taste to it. It was fermented. It was well preserved, very desirable. And as far as the master of the feast believed it to be, he had no idea that Yahushua had just made it. He thought, oh, they broke out the good stuff. This has probably been sitting for a long time, right? Okay, and don't forget now, this is back in the 1st century, so you got to lose that 21st century mindset. They weren't doing things back then like we do them now. And so anyway, then that which is poor, and then they give you the worst stuff, the stuff that's not so good. You have kept the good wine until now. So spiritually then, what he did here is he gave him the Basor of Yahushua. It's represented by the good wine. So he kept the good wine. It was unknown until now. So the new wine in the new wine sack. See, the old wine in the old wine sack was gone. Now he's giving them the new wine in the new wine sack. Basically, in the spiritual realm, we see this as the Basor of Yahushua. That's what we're seeing. And the wine itself being the blood of the Lamb of the new covenant, the renewed covenant. You see, the good wine, the blood that really, really takes away the sins and blots out the sins of the world, not the stuff that didn't work. So when they drank that, the old stuff, then they generally gave you the poor stuff, which was men's traditions, stuff that didn't work. Was just traditional wives' fables, things like that. And then finally, he kept the truth till the end, and he kept the good wine, the truth, the spiritual meanings, the spiritual spirit and truth to the end until now. The Besor of Yahushua. That's the spiritual insight here. And another thing that we can see here spiritually, you have kept the good wine until now, means that's the start of the end times. End of days began. See, so 2,000 years later, lights out. So all this was happening, right near the 4th day. You will. So that's another spiritual insight we can get out of this. You have kept the good wine until now. This is the beginning of the latter days, or the end of time, end of ages. At this particular point where Yahushua is here now. walking. See that? So that's all spiritual and literal behind all that. So the good wine is coming from Yahusha, the Besor of Yahusha. All right, so that's it. That's something that usually people don't associate with that first sign. It says in 11, this the beginning of the signs Yahusha did and manifested his esteem, and his pupils believed him. See, that was the first sign that he gave, is that the good wine has arrived. The Besor of Yahusha is here now, and it's the end of the ages. It's the beginning of the last Yamim, last 2 days. Then lights out. Okay, so very good spiritual connection there. If you all say it, if you say it, if you don't, you'll have to pray for more spiritual insight. Pray for Yahuwah to open up your eyes and ears to understand his scriptures, and pray for edification of his scriptures. Give me edification of your scriptures. Pray hard for that. So let's continue on now here with comparing literal and spiritual meanings as we go through some more scriptures. So Yehukanan, or John 11 and 25 and 26 says, you know what? Let's back up to 21 just so you get a better feel for what's happening here. Martha then said to Yahusha, Master, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you might ask of Elohim shall give you. Yahusha said to her, your brother shall rise again. And Martha said to him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last Yom. Yahusha said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he dies, he shall live. So here Yahusha speaking of the first resurrection of the dead, from those who have fell asleep. Okay. And then in 26, now he's speaking of those who remain at his second coming, at the first resurrection. Those who remain are caught up with those who have been woke up, or from their sleep, or from the dead. It says, and everyone that is living and believing in me shall never die at all. Do you believe this? So now he's talking about those who remain at his second coming. They're going to be, after the first resurrection group rises and gets their immortal bodies, those who remain that are living will be transformed into immortality in a wink of an eyelid, and be caught up with those of the first resurrection together to meet Mashiach in the sky. He descends upon the Mount of Olives as he returns to the earth, his second coming. Interesting that it seems as though this group of people who believe and are alive at the time of his second coming and sees the first resurrection of the dead, they get a free ticket, free pass out of the grave, man. They don't have to die. They just get transformed in the blink of an eye and given immortality, caught up with the first resurrection. So it seems like that appointment that says that all men must die, then the judgment, they're given a free ticket and they don't have to die at all. That's what it's saying. And everyone that is living and believing in me shall never die at all. Do you believe this? Okay. That's what the literal appearance of this is. But then when we look at it in the spiritual reality of this is saying no one is dead yet. To Yahuwah, No one is dead yet. You're only dead when you experience the second death. That's when you experience death. And you get thrown into the lake of fire, which is the second death. So that everyone is living and believing in me shall never die at all. This is including those who are alive at the time of his second coming and those who have fallen asleep. Because he plainly says they're not dead, they're just sleeping. He said it about the little girl, he said it about Lazarus, about the servant of that captain of the army. See what I'm saying? So when we look at it in a spiritual reality, we get the truth out of it. And it's plainly saying that anyone who believes in Yahusha, though he dies, he shall live. So he's really not dead in the sight, in Yahuwah's eyes. He's still alive. Because Yahuwah is the only one that can speak this way. When he speaks, it's as though things have already happened, because he knows what's going to happen in the future. He's the only one that can do that. So literal and spiritual here in that. I hope you all see that. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, master, I believe that you are the Mashiach, the son of Elohim, who is coming into the world. That funny? I don't think she really caught it, do you? I don't think she was picking up what he was laying down. So she told him, as far as her mind was letting her understand, is that, I believe that you are the Mashiach, the son of Elohim, who is coming to the world. He didn't ask her that. He said, and everyone that is living and believing in me shall never die at all. Do you believe this? So I guess she didn't know how to take that. She couldn't figure that one out. So she says, all I know is I believe that you're the Mashiach, the son of Elohim, who's coming into the world. I believe that much. Boom, she gone. Funny, isn't it? So we can see here the literal and the spiritual now, even in this. It's almost everywhere. Man, we have to be able to understand it so that we can walk in the Ruach and the Spirit and the truth, folks. We have to be able to do it. And so, even though the children of Yisrael and the Torah was our example, our vision, our literal example, that our eyes could be opened up by getting the vision of what happened to them, and we could transfer into the spiritual reality of our era from the outpouring of the Ruach. Gives us that vision and that understanding of the spirit realm. We can also find it in the Nazarene writings. It's all over the Nazarene writings as well. So not only does the Tanakh or the Torah teach us these things, the Nazarene writings exploits it, man. It amplifies it for us so that we can get a really good spiritual insight and understanding of the spiritual world of the reality that exists where truth and love resides. See that? So this book is an awakening, man. The whole word of Yahuwah is a awakening for us to know how to get across the bridge that leads from impurity on one side to purity on the other side, which allows us to get close to Yahuwah. Even as close as his breath, man. I mean, we get right up there. once we're able to cross that bridge or go through the gate, if you will. All right. All right, so let's continue on. Matthew 22, 29 through 30 to 40, 29 through 40 is very clear that Yahuwah is not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living. So he doesn't see those who have fallen asleep as dead. He sees them as still just sleeping. That's how he sees them. Because he knows that they're going to be in eternity with him. That should bring great comfort to everyone that's listening this evening. When you realize that death is no more than a delusion, and that really you're just going to sleep for a little while. You're entering to your room, and you're going to hide in your room for a little while. And then he's going to call you out of your room to come and partake in the greatness and the joy and the peace of Yahuwah. Should bring some comfort to some of you in more ways than one. Starting at verse 29, Matthew 22, it says, "And Yahusha answering said to them, You go astray, not knowing the writings nor the power of Elohim. For in the resurrection they do not marry, nor are they giving in marriage, but are as messengers of Elohim in heaven. And concerning the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by Elohim?" Now see, when Yahushua says in 31, and concerning the resurrection of the dead, he knows they're not dead. So why is he using them words when he clearly knows that they're just sleeping? Well, so who's sleeping? The flesh or the spirit of the man? It must be the spirit of the man sleeping, because the flesh is returning to dust. See that? And so Yahusha, it's interesting that he says that they're dead. And so why is he saying that? Because he's just talking the verbiage, because he knows that these people that he's talking to, these Pharisees that question him, are in the mind of the flesh. And so they can only stand flesh. Flesh is flesh. Okay? And so he's speaking to them in their language, the language of the world, the fleshly, delusional language that they speak, so that they can understand him. That's why. He's not contradicting himself at all. He's just speaking in the way they understand things. Remember what I said? You spirit, Ruach, can be understood by Ruach, not by the flesh. And the flesh can only be understood by flesh. It can't understand the Ruach. You can't go back and forth and mix it once you've crossed over. Remember that? So that is pretty clear. And Yahuwah answered said to them, You go astray, not knowing the writings or the power of Yahuwah. For in the resurrection they do not marry, nor are they given in marriage, but are as messengers of Elohim in heaven. And concerning the resurrection of the dead, you have not read what was spoken to you by Elohim, saying, Oh, they may have read it, but they didn't understand it in a spiritual application. They only understood the literal, the physical application, even if they did read it, which Yahushua is saying they didn't read it. And concerning the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by Elohim? Yes, they did, but they didn't understand it. Okay? saying, I am the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Yaakov. Elohim is not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living. So what is he saying here in the spiritual realm? Spiritual language. Are y'all understanding the spiritual language? What's he saying? He's saying that he's not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living. So what he's is implying then is that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are not dead. They're still alive. Because in the spiritual realm, where truth and love resides, and the true reality of things, they're just sleeping. They're asleep. Their spirit, in their being, the man's spirit, those men's spirit are sleeping. That's it. So to Yahuwah, it's clear. Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are still alive. They just sleep. Powerful, isn't it? And when the throngs heard, they were astonished at his teaching. But the Prushim, having heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, were gathered together, and one learned in the Torah, did question, trying him and saying, Teacher, which is the great command in the Torah? And Yahushua said to him, You shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your mind. This is the first and great command. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commands hang all the Torah and the prophets. So here we go. The first and great command and the second command is found in the Torah. Okay, it's found in, the first one is found in Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9. And the second is found in Leviticus 19, 18. Love your neighbor as yourself. So it's not a new command, it's an old command. And it's the greatest two commands there is. Okay. Are these two commands found in the 10 Debarah? The 10 love commands? No, but yes, because they encompass them. On these two commands hang all the Torah and the prophets. And love is the completion of the Torah. Can you love without entering into the spiritual realm, into reality? No, absolutely not. You can have a pure heart and love. Your inner man can love others. When you see through the eyes of the Ruach's eyes and see others as he sees them, yeah, absolutely, you can then. Flesh consumes flesh. Flesh eats flesh. What is flesh is born of flesh is flesh. And flesh is an enemy of the Ruach, of the reality, because it's just an evil twin. It's a carbon copy. It's a type. It's a shadow. It cannot inherit the reign of Yahuwah. It's a delusion. Okay, enough on that. We can tell now by reading that, studying just a little bit, that Yahuwah is not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living. That's spiritual. We see the spiritual side of that, of death, which should lessen the fear of death, at least to a certain degree for us. All right. And once we realize, okay, we're just falling asleep for a little while, and then he's going to wake us back up. We're going into our room and shutting the door, right? And basically you're entering to the grave. You're going to go sleep, be quiet, fall asleep for a little while, and I'll get you. I'll call you, wake you up when it's time for you to get up. And it's just going to seem like it is now in this carbon copied reality, this illusion. You go lay down at night, you fall asleep, you sleep 8 hours, 10, 12 hours, whatever you sleep, and you wake up and you're like, man, it's Seems like I've only been sleeping for an hour and it's been 10 hours. It's going to be the same way. You're going to wake up and say, wow, seems like I was only asleep for an hour or two, and here it's been whatever, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, whatever. So I hope we're all starting to realize with the reality, the spiritual reality versus the physical or literal delusion that we're all in. So I hope we're seeing that. We don't belong here, man. This is temporary. We've just been put here because of disobedience. And he wants us, because we've become unclean and we're impure. He wants us to clean up, get cleaned back up, come back into the spiritual realm where truth and love resides, walk in truth, and be pure. Go back to having a pure mind, pure heart, full of love. And so that we can get out of this rat trap we're in, these cells in this prison, and move on into spiritual eternity with Yahuwah as we were designed to do. And be love, because Yahuwah is love and will be love. There's one thing you can rest assured of, and that's eternity will be full of love. That you can rest assured of. All right. So now let's get into this is I think kind of an important revelation here as far as a spiritual awakening for the Nazarene here. And it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 9 through 16. So if you would like to do that, look at 1 Corinthians chapter 2, 9 through 16. And hang with me on this one. This is extremely important stuff. Okay, so here we go. But it has been written, eye has not seen, and ear has not heard, nor have entered into the heart of man what Yahuwah has prepared for those who love him. But Yahuwah has revealed them to us through his Ruach, for the Ruach searches all things, even the depths of Yahuwah. For who among men knows the thoughts of a man except the Ruach of the man that is in him? So also the thoughts of Yahuwah no one has known except the Ruach of Yahuwah. Okay, and then real quick, 12 says, and we have received not the Ruach of the world, but the Ruach that is from Yahuwah, in order to know what Yahuwah has favorably given us. I'm going to pause right there for a second. Okay, look. This is exciting, okay, because when it says, but Yahuwah has revealed to them has revealed them to us through his Ruach, for the Ruach searches all things, even the depths of Yahuwah. So at first, this might be a startling statement, and we might say, what? The Ruach knows the depths of Yahuwah, searches the depths of Yahuwah? And we don't get that, right? But once we understand that Paul here, who actually wrote this epistle to the Corinthians, is revealing to them that there are three Ruachs. Three Ruachs. He's revealing three Ruachs to them. Okay? And what we need to see here and understand is that the Ruach searches all things, even the depths of Yahuwah. It's like us. And so we have this body, this physical body. You can see me, right? So you see this body, you say, oh, that's Mark, right? But you don't see the Ruach in me. You can't look at my Ruach and say, oh, that's Mark, because you can't see my Ruach. My Ruach's invisible. but my body is not. And my ruach that's within me is my emotions, my thoughts, who I really am. All that I am is in me, in my spirit, let's say. Let's just say spiritual. We're all got this, can understand what I'm saying here. So my spirit, the inner man, okay, my inner self that you can't see, knows what I'm thinking, my thoughts in my brain, my emotions, what I'm feeling, and all that, because it's what makes me a living being. It's what makes me, my personality, make me who I am. The flesh doesn't. This vessel doesn't. It just houses my spirit, who I really am. You see, and so it's the same with Yahuwah. He has a body. He created a body for himself, and the Ruach searches the depths of Yahuwah according to his thoughts, his actions, his emotions, his plans, all that he is, just like it is us. So, in other words, this is hard because it's hard to get the words to explain this out of me. But if you take my spirit out and see my spirit's out of my vessel and it's standing right here, okay, and then but you can't see that spirit, but you can see the body. So those that's Mark, but you don't know that's Mark because you can't see him, right? And he can't do nothing without this body. So you take that Ruach and stick him back in this body. Now you can hear the Ruach speak. And so, in other words, if I mask myself or if I go hide and I speak, you can know it's me. And I'll give you an example of that. So here I go. Now you can't see my body. Yeah, this is Mark. Hey, how y'all doing, man? How you doing? This is Mark, man. Okay. So now, what happened? You couldn't see this vessel, but you recognized me because you know what my voice sounds like and how my personality is and how I speak and talk and act, even though you couldn't see. So what did you just do when you weren't seeing me? You were recognizing my Ruach. You could recognize my Ruach through my emotions and my voice in how I act. You see that? So this is how the depths, the searchable things of the Ruach knows the body and vice versa. So you can search out yourself. Nobody else knows. Only you know. Only you can search out your thoughts and your intentions and your motives and your emotions and how you're feeling and about yourself or about someone else. You see, so all this is speaking of. This isn't something, mysterious and weird that we can't understand. You see that? Okay, so for the Ruach searches all things, even the depths of Yahuwah. See, it's hard to get that. Say, well, wait a minute. The Ruach is Yahuwah. So how is, well, I just tried to explain it to you. For who among men knows the thoughts of a man except for the Ruach of the man that is in him? So only the Ruach in me knows my thoughts, my emotions, my motives, and things like that. You don't know because you can't read my mind. See that? So also the thoughts of Yahuwah no one has known except the Ruach of Yahuwah. Because you can't read Yahuwah's mind. Nobody can. See what I'm saying? So it's fairly simple to see that. And then we have received not the Ruach of the world, but the Ruach that is from Yahuwah, in order to know what Yahuwah has favorably given us. Okay, so we're not receiving the Ruach of the world, but the Ruach HaKodesh, the Ruach that's from Yahuwah, in order to know what Yahuwah has favorably given us. So as you see how clear that is? And so what Paul's doing is revealing three ruachs. Okay, there is a ruach in a man, or a spirit, if you will, in a man that enables him to understand physical things, literal things, carbon copied things, the delusional things. You get it? That's what this is. Now, this is the spiritual side of this. We just went through the literal. Now I'm taking you into the spiritual. And it's a hard one to grasp. You have to listen to what I'm saying here. There is a spirit in man that enables him to understand physical, literal things in this delusional world, this carbon-copied world. Then there's a spirit, Yahuwah, okay, in us, that Yahuwah, let's just say Yahuwah, reveals things to man, to humans, to us, by his Ruach, which enables a man to penetrate the deeper spiritual things of Elohim, the reality, the truth, and being the presence of Yahuwah. All right, so here Paul's revealing three ruachs. We have to get this. So the ruach, there's a ruach in man that enables the man to understand the physical, literal things. Yahuwah reveals things to man by his ruach, which enables man to penetrate the deep spiritual things of Elohim. Also, we have received the Ruach HaKodesh in us that is sent from Yahuwah. It is the spirit or mindset of Yahushua HaMashiach, the Ruach HaKodesh that is from Yahuwah. But, there is an opposing spirit or opposing Ruach that tempts us, that tries to influence us, that is an opposing spirit or an opposing Ruach of this world, of this carbon-copied world, of this delusional world. It's physical, literal, temporary, temporal world. There's the three ruachs that Paul is trying to reveal here in 1 Corinthians 9 through 16. This is extremely important. We have to get it. You can't get it if you're wallowing in the miry pit. You got to be in the ruach and walk in the spirit and truth to get what I just said. Am I revealing truths? Am I revealing secrets? You better believe I am. Whether you like it or not. All right, here we go. Which we also speak, not in words which man's wisdom teaches, but which the Ruach HaKodesh teaches, comparing Ruach-like things with Ruach-like things. But the worldly man does not receive the things of the Ruach of Yahuwah, for they are foolishness to him, and he is unable to know them, because they are not abstractly discerned. They're not literal or physical. They're not foreshadows or types. They're not outlined in this carbon copy reality, this world, this delusion, I should say. But he who is Ruach-like discerns indeed all things, but he himself is discerned by no one. For who has known the mind of Yahuwah? It's Yahuwah, the Ruach. Remember, Yah reveals things to man through his Ruach, which enables man to penetrate the deep spiritual things of Elohim. Comes from the Ruach, man. We have received the Ruach HaKodesh that's from Yahuwah, and there is an opposing spirit of this world battling against us in the mind. Who has known the mind of Yahuwah? Who shall instruct him? But we have the mind of Mashiach. You see it? We have the mind of Mashiach now. So now we can see the reality. We can come out of the carbon copy delusion and we enter into the spiritual realm where truth and love resides. We are now walking in the Ruach and the truth because we have the mind of Mashiach, because the Ruach is indwelling us. We are like-minded with Yahusha. That's the spiritual application of this. This is an extremely important passage found in 1 Corinthians 2, 9 through 16. If you're not getting any of that stuff we just talked about, you better go read in that chapter. You know what I mean? Read it hard. Read it hard and deliberately, slowly, precisely, so that you can get it. The biggest mistake most of us make is we read through scriptures rapidly and we don't understand things because we can't see the spiritual in it. We don't even understand the literal because we're just blasting through it like it's a race to be able to read the entire Bible. That's what we've been taught to do, haven't we? Yeah, we have. So the world teaches us, oh yeah, read the whole scriptures. You should read it from cover to cover. So everybody opens up the scriptures and they start reading from cover to cover. And when they're done, they don't got a clue what they just read. But yet they can go out and brag to the world, yeah, I've read the Bible cover to cover. Oh, that's good, man. I've read it too. Matter of fact, I've read it from cover to cover 5 times. 5 times I've read it, cover to cover. Oh, really? Wow, man, you should be like a theologian by now, a scholar or preacher or something by now. You read it that many times. Yeah, but the weird thing is every time I read it, I get a different meaning out of it. Well, why is that? How can you read scriptures from cover to cover 5 times, and every time that you read it, you get a different meaning out of it? How is that? How can that be? It's because there's only one reason that can be. Because you didn't understand what you were reading those 5 times you read it from cover to cover. You read it so fast, you didn't pick up anything. Very little. So does it matter if someone read this from cover to cover? No, it don't. I'd rather somebody tell me, yeah, I've been reading Hebrews for 6 months now. I'm just reading it real slow. I'm on chapter 9. What? You're only on chapter 9? You've been reading Hebrews for 6 months? Yeah. I'm trying to understand it. Boy, that's a lot more pleasant to my ears than I read from cover to cover 5 times, and every time I read it, I get something else out of it. See what I'm getting at? Slow it down. Be precise in what you're reading. Read that sentence word by word. Try to figure it out. What's this saying? It's kind of like what we do on Yom Shabbat in our weekly study, right? In the Zoom at Noon meetings. We kind of slow it down. We try to read through it. And even if we read 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 verses and we stop and we go back and start trying to talk about what we just read and understand it, we still miss a whole lot, but we're doing what time permits, we're getting a lot out of it. But really, what should we be doing is reading one verse and talking about it till we understand, and then go to the next verse and read it and talk about it till we understand it. That's how we should be approaching those studies if we really and truly want to understand the word of Yahuwah. And so slow it down. Slow it down. All right. Let's look at Hebrews 9. And I want to go back over 13 and 14 because I want to take a quick look over to Hebrews 10:22 afterwards. So I know I'm repeating this, but it's important, a couple verses anyway, so it's not going to hurt us. So let's look at it. Hebrews 9:13 and 14, then we'll go to Hebrews 10:22. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer sprinkling the defiled sets apart the cleansing of the flesh. So interesting that this mixture of purification water helped clean, set apart the flesh, sprinkling the defiled, the unclean, right? The impure, helped clean the flesh to clean it up somewhat. Is interesting, okay? It didn't take away the sin, though. But how much more shall the blood of Mashiach, who through the everlasting Ruach offered himself unblemished to Yahuwah, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Yahuwah? And so we get to, through the blood of the Lamb of Yahuwah, it cleans our conscience so that we don't feel guilty anymore. You can't beat yourself up after you've been cleaned because you've been cleansed now. You're pure now. The impurities are gone, been washed off, blotted out, cleaned off by the blood of the Lamb of Yahuwah. And so your conscience should be clear. You shouldn't feel guilty anymore about the sins that in the betrayal that you did to Yahuwah. Your sins, your betrayal, your trespasses, your iniquities should be clear. Your conscience should be clear of them. Why? Because of the blood of the Lamb of Yahuwah. He cleansed your conscience for you to realize that you're no longer a sinner, but a son of Yahuwah, born from above. You're spiritual now, no longer held in your fleshly cell in this earthly prison, but you have been set free by Yahusha, and he's let you out of your cell so that your spirit can come out and walk in the Ruach, in the truth, and you can get out of this world, this prison world, this carbon copy world that we're in, and you can enter into the spiritual realm, the spiritual dimension where truth and love resides forever. And you can do that now. Does Yahuwah allow us in our reality, in this physical world, to leave it and enter into his spiritual realm with him and visit him, praise him, and worship him spiritually and in truth, and then allow us to come back across the bridge or through the gate, if you will, the door, back into this delusion? Yes, to work. To go to work in the harvest, to work the harvest. He absolutely does. You can go back and forth. But you don't have to leave the spiritual. You can remain in the spirit and truth even when you're in this physical and literal world. You see? It's an amazing journey. It's an amazing reality once you allow yourself to go there. You can be your worst enemy. You could be holding yourself back by fearing it. He says, fear nothing. Love casts out all fear. If you fear it, and then you're even though Yahuwah's opened up the door to your cell and set you free, you remain in your cell because of fear. Oh, I don't know what's out there in that spiritual dimension. I better stay here in my cell. Just that door. I'll hold that door shut. Why do you remain in your cell inside this prison when Yahuwah has set you free? Get out of there. It's time to get out. Let's look over now at Hebrews 10:22. It says, let us draw near with a true heart and completeness of belief, having our hearts sprinkled from a wicked conscience and our bodies washed with clean water. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without yielding, for he who promised is trustworthy. Believe in what Yahuwah says. Believe every word that comes out of the mouth of Yahuwah. And don't hesitate when you hear his call. Today, don't harden your heart. Get moving. Do what he says immediately. Don't even think about it. Run to it. Okay, so look. We all see the literal here, I'm sure. But what's the spiritual? What's the reality? What's the truth behind this? Outside of the physical. Let us draw near with a true heart and completeness of belief. That means what you're saying is, it comes out of your mouth, is what you really truly believe. That's what's really in your heart. So when people say he knows my heart, that's just trying to camouflage who they really are. That's all that is. Because what comes out of your heart, if it's a true heart, a pure heart, then the completeness of belief will come out. And what you say is good and it's true. And your belief is real because your obedience shows it and proves that your belief is real because you're obedient. Your obedience proves your loyalty and your love to Yahuwah. Okay? But if you're going out and you're living in this carbon copied world, in this delusion, and you're partaking in the delusion, smoking dope, popping pills, getting drunk, chasing whores, all these kind of things, but then you run up to me and you say, yeah, but Yahuwah knows my heart. Everybody sins. Everybody sins every day. And Yahuwah knows my heart. He knows inside I really don't like doing those things. It's just the flesh doing it. The devil's making me do it. Yeah, Yahuwah knows your heart, all right, because what you say and your actions reveals what's in your heart. So that's why he knows what's in your heart, because he's seeing your actions and what you're doing and what you're saying and what you're partaking in. Are you walking in the spirit and the truth? Are you walking in the world and partaking in the lust, the pleasures, the possessions, the positions, the power of this world, which is rewards from the rule of this world, which is Satan? He's rewarding you for your disobedience and giving you possessions, power, position, and all your lust and pleasures on top of it that you want to chase and you love so much. Can't stand yourself unless you smoke a joint every day, even at work, huh? Ooh, that's good stuff. Smoke it up, man. So you're just fooling yourself. And you say, oh, he knows my heart. He knows I'm a good person inside. No, you're not, because what you are inside is coming out for all to see. You're being revealed through your conscience as well. Your conscience will reveal what your heart is. Okay? If you have a bad conscience about yourself, you haven't forgiven yourself or forgiven others. You don't love others. You don't love yourself. You don't love Yahuwah. That's pretty good. Your conscience is telling on you. Your conscience is telling others what kind of heart you really have, because your conscience is not clear. Okay. And so you're suffering from an unclean conscience, and you can't control it. You have no control of your conscious mind, your unconscious mind. It controls you. It reveals you and your heart. Okay. So let us draw near with a true heart, a clean, pure heart, a good heart, in completeness of belief, having our hearts sprinkled from the wicked conscience. See? Cleaned up, man, from the wicked conscience. Yeah, now you have a good conscience. And our body, because what's in your heart is revealed through your conscience. And our body's washed with clean water. The Ruach HaKodesh. You've been immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh. So what has happened here now? Well, our hearts are the new Holy of Holies. Okay. So our bodies have become the temple of Yahuwah, belongs to Yahuwah. Within our inner chamber, our most inner sanctuary, is the light, the menorah. Okay, it is the life. It is our life. It gives us life. If we're in the light, we have life. If we're in the darkness, we have death. So our hearts have become the new Ark of the Covenant. And the mercy seat is our Ruach. And the Ruach HaKodesh has surrounded us. He has encompassed us. He has sealed us for the day of redemption. And so he's setting on and surrounding and protecting and sealing our spirit, our Ruach, which is sleeping when we die. And his seed's implanted in us. And that is what resurrects us, because we have him, that seed, which is a part of the Ruach HaKodesh, the seed of Yahuwah is the Ruach HaKodesh, implanted in us and sealing us and sleeping with us until it's time to wake up. Then the power that raised the body of Yahusha is the same power that will raise us up when we're called to come out of our room. So what's inside of, if our hearts are now the Ark of the Covenant, what's inside of the Ark? The 10 Commandments. They've been inscribed, written on our hearts. They're inside of the Ark of the Covenant. Who is us? Who's our heart now? We have a true heart. We have a pure heart. We've achieved purity. We're no longer impure anymore. We're clean now. We house the 10 love commands in our heart. We have become a spiritual temple of Yahuwah. That's why Scripture says that we're living stones, and we're building up the temple or the body of Yahuwah as he builds up his living temple, not made by hands. And once he's chosen all his stones, living stones, which is a spiritual reality here, his body made of living stones, not with hands, his temple or his vessel, his body can be complete. He will indwell it for eternity. This is the reality, the spiritual truth to what's happening. It's not the delusion that we're all familiar with, which we call our reality or our inhabitants. Really, it's not. It's just a carbon copy of what's real. So, sprinkled from the wicked conscience and our bodies washed with clean water, the Ruach HaKodesh, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without yielding, for he who promised is trustworthy. So listen to what Yahuwah says. Listen to what Yahuwah says. Do what he says. Listen to his words and do what he says. If he calls on you this day, don't harden your heart. Don't stay in the physical world, man. Let go. You've been set free. The door's been opened to your cell. Come out of your cell and heed to the call of Yahuwah and obey his words, what he's telling you to do. Okay, so look at 1 John 4, 4 through 8. 1 John 4, 4 through 8. You are of Yahuwah, little children, and have overcome them, because he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. They are of the world, therefore they speak as of the world, and the world hears them. We are of Yahuwah. The one knowing Yahuwah hears us. He who is not of Yahuwah does not hear us. By this we know the Ruach of the truth and the Ruach of the delusion. Okay, how powerful is that? So the Ruach of the truth and the Ruach of the delusion. Okay, so the Ruach of the delusion and the Ruach of the truth. So the Ruach of the truth is the reality. It's where we have to get to. We need to cross over into the spiritual realm where truth and love resides. This is known, and most of us know this as walking in the spirit and truth, as he instructed the woman at the well, John 4. Okay, so this is the Ruach of the truth, and the Ruach of the delusion is the physical, the literal, carbon-copied world we live in. Your fleshly cell in this prison planet that's temporal. We must realize that this is a delusion, and we must come out of it. It's the Ruach of the world. Remember, we just read that back here in 1 Corinthians. Remember that? 1 Corinthians 10 and 11 here and 12. But Yahuwah has revealed them to us through his Ruach, for the Ruach searches all things, even the depths of Yahuwah. For who among men knows the thoughts of a man except the Ruach of the man that is in him? So also the thoughts of Yahuwah no one has known except the Ruach of Yahuwah. And we have received not the Ruach of the world, the delusion, but the Ruach that is from Yahuwah, in order to know what Yahuwah has favorably given us. So this is the Ruach of the truth. The Ruach of the delusion is the Ruach of the world. Keeps you in this literal, physical, carbon copy world, making you think this is your reality. And that's a lie. Your reality is of the spiritual realm, where truth and love resides. You see that? You know, I've had people say, hey, man, what delusion? What you talking about, man? This ain't no delusion. This is the world you and me. This is what he gave us to live in, man. This is our world. It's our reality. But is that true? No. This is just, we're here because we fell. We're here because we're criminals. And we were sentenced to death. And we were put on this, in this prison, to live out our short temporal life, waiting on the executioner to strike, which is death. Death has authority over sin. So the more we sin, the more authority death has to interfere in your life, which you perceive as your reality, but it's really not. It's really a delusion. You're delusional. You don't understand that you're a spiritual creature that was made to be loved, to love and be loved, and to spend eternity with Yahuwah, who is love. In the spiritual realm, in the eternal dimension. We fell from that eternal dimension into this carbon copied world because of evil. This is where evil exists. This is where the truth, the tree of evil, knowledge of evil and good took us into this evil reality or this delusion. So, yes, the delusion is real. No, this is not our place of origins, that we were put here to spend eternity in this prison planet. It's not where we're supposed to be. So, is there any proof of that? Well, we just read some proof of it. Ruach of the truth and the Ruach of the delusion means the delusion got to be real. Beloved ones, let us love one another, because love is of Yahuwah, and everyone who loves have been born of Yahuwah and knows Yahuwah. So born from above, you're a spiritual creature now. See, you have to you have to go back to being a spiritual creature. You have to be set free. If you're set free from your cell, the door's open, and you're still in this prison world, you need to come out of there, and you need to enter back into the spiritual realm where you belong. And that's who Yahuwah is seeking, those who understand that and pursue that and want to receive pardon. So you've been pardoned of your sins, means you've been forgiven of your penalty, and that is eternal death. The second death is eternal death. It's the lake of fire, means eternal death. You won't get another chance. So we're this carbon copy world, this prison you're in. Pretty soon the executioner is going to come for you, and he's going to give you the second death, and that's going to be the lake of fire. And then from there's no escape. It's permanent death, eternal death, forever. And some people don't care, and so therefore they don't care. That's what they're going to get. They're going to get exactly what they're asking for and what they're thinking on. So to prove further that the delusion is real, let's look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, 11 and 13. And for this reason, let's back up to 10. And with all deceit of unrighteousness, delusion, deceit, it's not real. and those perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth in order for them to be delivered. The spiritual realm is a reality, and it's truth. It's the truth, man. It's the real. It's real. It's the reality. In order for them to be delivered, see, you have to love the truth and walk in the spirit and truth to be delivered, man. You have to. That's what it just said. And for this reason, Yahuwah sends them a working of delusion for them to believe the falsehood, in order that all should be judged who did not believe the truth, but have delighted in lawlessness. So they're criminals. They're delighting in lawlessness. They have no love for the truth. The working of delusion. That proves there's a delusion. 2 Peter. And go to 2 Peter. It says, 2 Peter 2:18, I think. Is it 2:18? 2 Peter 2:18. For speaking arrogant nonsense, they entice through the lusts of the flesh, through indecencies, the ones who have indeed escaped from those living in delusion. See? Living in the delusion. Hey, this is not reality, man. This is the delusion. Promising them freedom, though themselves being slaves of corruption, for one is a slave to whatever overcomes him. For if after they have escaped the defilements of the world through the knowledge of the Master and Deliverer, Yahushua Mashiach, they are again entangled in them and overcome, the latter end is worse for them than the first. For it would have been better for them not to have known the way of uprightness, than having known it, to turn from the set apart command delivered to them. For them the proverb has proved true. A dog returns to his vomit, and a washed sow returns to who rolling in the mud. Back to the pit, the miry clay, the pit. Oh boy. And then 3:18, there's 2 Peter 3:18. Back up to 17 if you want. You then, beloved ones, being forewarned, watch, lest you also fall from your own steadfastness, walking in the spirit and truth, being led away with the delusion of the lawless. The delusion of the lawless. They're in a delusion. But grow in the favor and knowledge of our Master and Deliverer, Yahushua Mashiach. See that? So absolutely, we're living in a delusion, man. This is not a reality. Yeah, okay, so then I think Jude, there may be, I think there's something in Jude. Let's look and see. I'm not sure. Yeah. Talking about the delusion. Jude 1:11, maybe. Yeah, kind of is, but not really. But it kind of is. Woe to them, because they have gone in the way of Cain and gave themselves to the delusion of Balaam for a reward, and perished in the rebellion of Korach. So there you go. The delusion. So it's a delusion is something that seems like it's real, a reality, but it's really not. It's not really there. It's a mirage. It's an image. It's a type or foreshadow of the reality. It's just a shadow of what's real. But it's enough to make you think that it's real, but it's not. So the spiritual realm is the truth and reality. The physical or literal carbon copy realm, dimension, if you will, is nothing more than a foreshadow or a type of the reality that's coming, that's eternal. The mirage, the delusion, will not survive into eternity. It will be destroyed, no longer needed. Okay, it will be destroyed. It would have served its purpose, and that was to imprison those who betrayed Yahuwah and sinned. That's it. Your sinning is a betrayal of Yahuwah. You've betrayed love. You've betrayed love. You've used his love against him. It's a horrible betrayal. The foreshadow is Judas. He betrayed Yahuwah with a kiss. He betrayed him with his love for him. That's why it was such a horrible thing. He used his love against him and with his betrayal. The same thing we've done. We've sinned. We have betrayed love. We have betrayed Yahuwah, who is love. We need to get pure, cleaned up. We need to become love again. We need to enter into the spiritual realm where truth and love resides and stay there. Even if we come back through the gate in order to work the harvest, doesn't mean we have to mingle and become part of the world again. Of course, we're going to get some dust on us. You get dirty when you work. You're going to get a little bit dirty, but then you're going to wash your brother's feet, clean that dust off. You're going to come back to the reality, back into the spiritual realm, and be immersed with the Ruach. And the living waters are going to flow out of your innermost belly. And your Ruach's going to clean and wash you back up with the living waters. And then you're going to go back through the gate, back in the spiritual realm, and spend time with Yahuwah again in his presence. Do you know how to get there? You should by now. Do you know the way? Do you know the way to cross the bridge from impurity to purity and enter into the presence of your master, your creator, your husband, Yahuwah, Al Shaddai? Do you know the way? So now let's look here at Revelation 7:17 real quick. Here's another repeat, but well worth reading. 16:17 actually. Revelation 7. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun strike them, nor any heat. Because the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne shall shepherd them and lead them to fountains of Miriam of life. And Yahuwah shall wipe away every tear from their eyes. Wow. Lead them to fountains of Miriam of life. Yeah. The Ruach HaKodesh. The Ruach HaKodesh. Now, amazingly here, Revelations 22:17 says, and the Ruach and the bride say, come. And he who hears, let him say, come. And he who thirsts, come. And he who desires it, take the water of life without paying. There you go. Take the water of life without paying. Notice here in Revelation 22:17 that the Ruach and his bride are now united. They become one. And speaking as one. And the Ruach and the bride say, come. So they become his body. Who is now indwelling his body, which is his bride. It's the temple that is made with living stones, without hands. He has become one with his bride, and they're speaking in unisons as one. The oneness of Yahuwah. Yahuwah has become all in all. Powerful stuff, man. Take from the water of life without pain. So that's pretty much it. The whole point of all this was to help y'all get out of the physical or literal delusion, this carbon copy world, and get you over into the mind of the Ruach, the mind of Yahusha, into the spiritual realm where truth and love resides. That was the whole point of this study. So I hope that everybody received the message and the understanding on how to do that. Because if we're not able to enter, walk out of these fleshly cells and set up ourselves apart, get out of this prison. So we're standing outside the prison. So here's the prison. We're in our little fleshly cell, and we've got to get out of the world, which is the prison. We get going outside of the world. We have to be on the outside of the world looking in, right? So we have to take a walk into the spiritual realm, walk in spirit and truth. And Yahuwah calls us for that. He seeks those who have this understanding, who worships him in spirit and truth. That's who he wants. He sees that. He says, you're mine. Be set apart, for I'm set apart. Be perfect, for your Father in heaven is perfect. Be perfect in love. Become pure again. Become my temple. I'll dwell you. Your heart's the Ark of the Covenant. I'll put my commandments in there. I'll take you as my bride. You'll enter in the everlasting covenant, the renewed covenant with me. So forth and so on. I'll seal your spirit till the day of redemption, till I come back and redeem you and give you a new body. I'll change your old body into a spiritual being and give you immortality, give you a body to reside in, so that your Ruach can reside in, the Ruach of the man can reside in there, and you'll live in eternity with me and never see death. You'll never die. I mean, wow, and so this is what we have to understand and try to, try to understand it if you can. The more you can understand it, the more you can, when you read scripture, you pick up on the literal and the spiritual. And the more you start picking up on that spiritual, the more you're going to be able to start seeing into that spiritual realm. And pretty soon you're going to be able to come in and out of that spiritual realm, walking through, back and in and out of the gate to green pasture. Either way. Because you don't have to become back into this world and be part of the world. You can remain set apart. But don't forget the battle that you're going to have with the flesh, daily battle. As soon as you come back into the world, into this delusion, this physical, literal existence, it's where your flesh is from. Your flesh is from here. So it wants to go home. It wants to go back into the pig pen, back into the pit, and waller in the pig pen to eat the dog vomit, right? Get unclean again. And when the pig wants to become dirty again, because it's from here, it's of the world. But your spirit is not. Okay, so you have to maintain, put a leash on that flesh especially when you go back into the world. In order to work the harvest, you got to put a collar and leash on that flesh and keep control of it. Don't let it get back and get dirty again. If it pulls away from you, breaks the leash or whatever, and jumps in the mud, then you're going to have to go get it, drag him out of there, chain him back up, and take him and hose him off and clean him up. That's where the washing of the feet comes in. You're not totally dirty because you've already been set apart and clean. But now you got to clean that flesh up because that flesh got away from you and went and jumped back into the mud puddle, back into the world and got dirty again. So you got to clean it back up. See what I'm saying? So you gotta be knowledgeable of that. You gotta remember that. It's important to remember. Just remember, it's not you, man. It's not you. You have to have a body to reside in. Otherwise, you'd fall asleep. You couldn't get around. Your ruach can't get around without a vessel. It has to have something to dwell in. Okay, that's why Yahuwah's going to raise it back up, raise your bones back up, and then he's going to very quickly, immediately turn it into, in the blink of an eye, make it immortal. And I think the reason he's doing that is because that's who you are. So I think even our immortal bodies will identify who we are by sight. So I'm going to look in my immortal body. I'm going to look like I do right now. Otherwise, how would you recognize me? That's why he has to bring your old body back to life if you've fallen asleep and it's returned to dust. See what I'm saying? And that's just my opinion. But that's what I think. But you got to have a vessel to get around in. The ones that remain alive at his second coming, all right, won't be changed until the ones that are asleep have risen and got their immortal bodies first. Then those who will remain alive at the time won't see death. They won't have to die at all. They're going to receive their immortal body. So that right there kind of hints to the fact that if you're alive and then you're not going to see death, but you're going to be changed. You're going into immortality. This flesh and bone, blood body is going to be changed to an immortal body. Doesn't it seem common sense that we're going to look like we are? We're going to keep our looks. Just going to be immortal. It's what it kind of hints, I think, to that. So some people teach, I've heard them say that we're all going to look the same, but I don't think so, man. I think we're all going to remain the way we are. We're going to have the outer appearance so we can be easily recognized by people who know us or will know us. I think we'll all know. Everybody will know everybody, I think, in the end, in eternity. But anyway, that's another subject. I don't know. Maybe we'll just finish this off with the Psalms here. Psalm 63. Let's go to Psalms 63, and we'll finish this off. Or should we go to 42? Let's look at 42. See which one would fit here best. Yeah, they're both good. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and go to Psalms 42. And we'll finish off with Psalms 42. All right, here we go. Psalms 42. I'm in BYNV. As a deer longs for the water streams, so my being longs for you, Elohim. My being thirsts for Elohim, for the living all. When shall I enter in to appear before Elohim? My tears have been my food, Yam and Leah, while they say to me, O Yam, where is your Elohim? These I remember and pour out my being within me, for I used to pass along with the throng. I went with them to the house of Elohim with the voice of joy and praise. A multitude keep in a festival. Why are you depressed, O my being? And why are you restless within me? Wait for Elohim, for I shall yet thank him for the deliverance of his face. O my Elohim, my being is depressed within me. Therefore I remember you from the land of the Yarden, and from the heights of Kermon, from Mount Mitzar. Canyon calls to canyon, in the sound of your waterfalls. All your waves and breakers passed over me. By Yom, Yahuwah commands his kindness, and by night his song is with me. A prayer to the all of my life. I say to all my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why do I go mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? My enemies have reproached me like a crushing of my bones, while they say to me all yom long, where is your Elohim? Why are you depressed, O my being? And why are you restless within me? Wait for Elohim, for I shall yet thank him, the deliverance of my face in my Elohim. Wow. So there it is. That's a wrap. I'm done for this week, this Shabbat studying, and thank all of you for coming. Thank each and every one of you in the chat room for being here, studying with me. You're more appreciated than you realize. And it's my deepest hope that you all come out of the physical, literal, carbon copied, delusional world that we're all trapped in and start walking in the spiritual realm where truth and love resides. Walk in the spirit and the truth and be humble with Yahuwah as we continue on this path and we work the harvest together. Try to understand that this is not our reality. This is only a delusion. But eternal life is truth. It's a reality. It's spiritual. Then we can obtain eternal life. Okay, and so try your best to walk in the spirit and the truth. Yahuwah seeks those who have this understanding. Be at peace, remain in his joy, become who you are, which is love, and endure. Run the race, the good race. Keep up the good fight. Endure to the end. Trust in Yahuwah's words. Trust in your belief in his existence and his power to deliver you, the power of his blood to blot out your sins and clean up your conscience, to clean up your heart, to give you a pure heart, give you a good heart, a true heart, and so that his fruits can be seen through you. You be a shining light on the hill to all humanity. Thank you for coming. Love all of you. Peace and joy to everybody. See y'all next week. And remember to stay in love with Yahushua HaMashiach. So long, Nazarene, beloved of Yahuwah. So long, everybody. See y'all next week.